Gdańsk battlers, and welcome to the G'day Battlers podcast. And we said we were going to use it last week, and then we didn't. So we got there in the end. But
last week, how far away ago was it?
yeah, I have a problem in that I keep saying like last week or next week when that is not the unit of time that we're measuring this in by any means. But
maybe in your like time traveling machine, maybe that's why. Just like while you're zipping around the world, it's like, oh yeah, it was last week. We're like, time is different.
I've been in a lot of different time zones. Actually, I almost got messed up a little bit today because and we'll get to this, as we go on with this podcast. But I was in Adelaide for a week, and I only got back yesterday. And Adelaide is 30 minutes different to current time zone, at home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I had to pick up my mother from the train station because she was also overseas at she was in Europe as well. And so I was going to get her from the train station, drop her home, yada, yada, yada. And she was like, okay, I'm going to get to the train station at 11:50. It's like, all right, cool. And, I was keeping an eye on the time. I was like, happy days. We're all good here. I'm looking at my laptop time and it's like, it's 11:10. We've got 40 minutes on this puppy. We're fine. And then I look at my phone and it says 11:40 on it. I'm like, oh, I see what has happened here. Someone didn't update their laptop time from Adelaide time. So, it was a bit of a, just run off to the train station. And we got there in time. I wasn't even late. It's like I knew the time the whole time. But
talking about train stations, we have totally derailed this intro. Thank you. I've worked on it.
Yeah. We were workshopping before the podcast. We weren't. Full credit on that one. But are we ever really on the rails? I mean, maybe we should be on the rails because there is a lot to talk about, I suppose, over the last multiple weeks. It's actually been since the last episode because we recorded before Gdańsk. I just landed in Poland like the day before or 2 days before, something like that, when we recorded the last episode. And so since then, we've had Gdańsk, we've had Buenos Aires, we've had LAIC, and actually, as we're recording, Sacramento has actually kicked off. So it's been a little while, and I've been to a lot of cities, a lot of countries, a lot of time zones in the interim, and I guess that's the meat and potatoes of what we'll be talking about today. I guess because got to recap this thing somewhere, I suppose.
No future YouTube vlog coming up with all the PvP Steve travel vlog.
Yeah, I do intend to put a vlog together. I think I didn't get as much footage as I should have. Like when I sort of left, I had an idea about what the vlog was going to look like, how I was going to do it. And I stuck to my guns for all of about 48 hours. And so I got sort of the footage that I wanted to for the first 48 hours. And then it was pretty, I don't want to say bare bones, but I think the footage I got is very non-fluffy in that there isn't a lot of the sort of surrounding bits that I sort of recorded. Right. I recorded a lot of the main bits. So like, the main storyline is there. The main beats of the trip are sort of in there, but it is missing a lot of the detail, I guess. So
yeah.
That's where this comes in.
Well, I was going to say you can have an excuse.
Yeah, there might be a reason that we are missing some of the pieces that I even did record that I would have.
Yeah. So I think you can put a one of those like screens where it's just like transmission has been like just the blurry screen or like what do you call it? The circle with the that one.
The circle. Wait, where are we going with the circle?
Yeah, like when like TV, talking about TVs when people used to watch television.
I don't know that guy.
And not a program would be on and it'd be like a circle, but it would have all these lines and it'd be like, some lines going this way, some lines going this way, different colors, black and white here, but some colors at the bottom saying there's nothing on TV or there's just basically the transmission hold screen, whatever it was.
Wait, did you see that like legitimately? Like, did that stuff happen like proper? Because I know.
Let's just move on. I feel like that's going to be targeted on me later.
I've just never thought about it because my entire experience of those sort of things is like something in like I don't know
Just
The Simpsons or something where it's like sorry we're having technical difficulties and there's like a guy pulling a plug with I don't know some shenanigan drawn in. It's like oh yeah, I guess that must be based on something. There you go.
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
The answer is yes. But anyway, let's go on. Let's move on from that.
we learned something new, I guess. So, yeah, I guess if we, derail off of that, it is currently November 24th, and I
Mhm,
left on the 30th of October. So it's been about 1, 2, 3. We were approaching the 4-week mark to sort of
mhm,
go from home to home. And so, as
mhm.
I think I talked about the trip to Gdańsk last time, and there
Yes.
was some shenanigans along the way. But anyway, we
Mhm,
got there in the end. And I think I'm not sure if I commented on this last time. I don't think I did because I'd barely been there. But
mhm,
going to Gdansk on the Friday, so it was a 2-day tournament, Saturday, Sunday,
mhm,
and
mhm.
the Friday was allegedly registration day. And so
Yes.
I was like, oh well, look, I'll probably go to Reggio. I'll see some people there, and we'll head off.
Mhm, mhm,
Happy
mhm, mhm,
days. So Reggio probably opened at like 5 p.m. or something. So I go down to Reggio, and to get there, it turns out my hotel was a little bit further away than I sort of thought it was in reality. I had a bit more faith in public transport than maybe I should have. Because as much as we sort of complain about it here, Australia's got it pretty good. uh, or certainly, I mean, certainly my city has it pretty good. If you
Mm,
consider you can get anywhere with a combo of mostly just buses, really. Um,
mm,
wasn't as convenient, but it was still pretty good, to be fair.
mhm,
So I ended
mhm,
up getting the train. I had to walk like 50 minutes to the train, catch the train for like 10 minutes, and then another
mhm,
15-minute walk back from the train station. But got there in
mhm,
the end about 5 p.m. I Reggio. I don't really see anyone there, and I'm like, weird. And I sort of meet a
mm,
few people that hadn't met before, hadn't heard of before. Like
mhm,
the first guy I met. Was Fazbear or Fazberry, I think his name
mhm,
was, and he was sort of a recurring character of the weekend. It was his like first tournament. He ended up doing very well, but
mhm.
so we chatted for the most part, and I was kind of just standing around, like I'm sure I'll meet someone. Like I'm sure someone's gonna rock in.
Yeah.
Nah, sort of seemed like everyone was just gonna wait till the Saturday morning to Reggio. Maybe I really don't know, but
Mm-mm.
no one
Yeah.
ended up rocking up while I was there. That's for sure.
Mm-mm.
Which I
Well,
mean,
maybe
in
they
Australia.
were like the Europeans live so close to each other. Probably like, oh, okay, I'm gonna knock off work, or maybe they were just like, oh, I'll take a half day and then head down and Reggio in the morning. But yes, in Australia.
No, I mean to your point, I guess like there
Mm-mm.
were probably a lot of Europeans that sort of did come in a bit later, and it's like even if they sort of finished up work, even if they finished up work like an hour early, they finish at 4, then they fly
Mm.
over. They could probably still make it to like the end of the Reggio window, so
Mm-mm.
that could probably make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I guess like I was just sort of thinking about Australian regionals when like
Mm-hmm.
we've certainly had quite a few where there is no day zero registration. It's just rock up in the
Mm.
morning. Although I think they've all got rego now, right?
I think it's been implemented since like I'm gonna say late last year.
Yeah.
To have that extra rego time instead of like definitely in the first season of Go, it was very much rego in the morning. Whereas I think because of the numbers getting quite large, that they were like, okay, let's add that extra Friday. Because yeah, I remember like a fair few tournaments where it was just just still lining up in the morning and being like, oh, okay, I got to get there like even though rego's at 9, I would get there at 8:30 or 8 because I knew the line was going to be long. So and then I was like, oh well, I'm in line anyway, and they're not gonna shoo me away if I'm still in line just to rego. They'll just start late, and Go usually starts late anyway because it's usually phone issues or someone having brutal swing or something. I don't know, something on those lines.
Don't know what you could mean, but yeah,
I
we're
will
definitely
bring
in
it up
that
in
sort of
every
space.
third episode. Like, I will bring that
Every
up.
third, I think it's come out for 3 of the last couple. I think we're on a bit of a hot streak at the moment. Maybe if you average it out with all the like Road to Worlds episodes we did, I don't know, but
That's longer than my Duolingo streak.
ooh. Yeah, that guy's well gone. That owl is definitely coming for me. But Yeah, I guess. Well,
Regoed,
I ended up,
didn't see anyone.
yeah, got retroed. Also, I was sort of expecting, like, again, like I started the vlog proper on that day, I guess, outside of like,
Mhm.
airport shots and whatever. And I was like, oh, I'll at least get like, I'll get the playmat and whatever. We just got the band. We didn't even get like the playmat and the card or whatever. We were going to get that
Oh,
on Saturday anyway. So it was like, oh, why did I come here? What was the point?
yeah,
And
yeah,
actually, I
yeah,
think one of the
yeah.
Europeans I talked to sort of said that. They were like, oh, why bother? Like, what's the point? And I was like, I didn't
Uh,
know.
yeah, yeah.
I thought it
That's
was a good
different.
idea to collect my
Mm.
stuff, throw it back to the airport, back to the hotel, sorry, and
Yeah, yeah,
be done with it. Not have to carry it
yeah,
around. But
yeah. That's what we
it's what
do
it
in
is.
our country. Why do you not do this?
Just felt convenient, to be honest. But yeah, instead had to
Mm,
carry them all around and keep that card safe somehow, which is always the
mm,
hardest part. Like, what are we actually
mm.
expected to do? I don't understand. Like, most of the time, it ends up sort of in the back of my wallet. It's like, well, it's between like two credit cards. Maybe it'll maybe it'll survive. Like, I don't know. Are we supposed to have a deck box ready?
At least a sleeve. I guess you can always ask a TCG person going, "Do you have a spare sleeve?" And they probably
They
would.
actually gave us a sleeve. Or
Ah,
I
you
could
got
be
this bougie, Gdańsk.
okay.
You
I
got
could be speaking out
sleeves.
of turn. I know 2 out of 3 of the cards I got on this trip at least had sleeves. It's
Are you
possible that
saying that we got gypped in Australia? Like, do we need to contact, ESL Australia? Hello, where are our sleeves for our, boss's orders cards?
I mean, they're just like old sleeves as well. They're like from, one of them says copyright 2022 on it. So I'm sure it's from some 2022 set that they just had a bunch of sleeves from. And
Don't care. Still want it. We're missing out.
well, I should have brought show and tell, but I didn't. So it's
That's okay. Next time.
like we'll remember next time. Let's be real.
We won't remember. We
We
won't.
won't remember it all. But anyway, I ended
No.
up sort of heading off, going to dinner with Adelian and,
Mm.
well, the British contingent, I guess I should say. So we sort of
Oh.
stopping at this pub. I actually, was it really dinner? We didn't really get dinner, to be honest. It was kind of just drinks. I think we ended up, maybe we got dinner elsewhere, but it was, in my mind, it was like, okay, well, this is going to be an early night because like we've got to compete tomorrow. And
Ah.
so maybe like 8 p.m., 8:45 p.m. I was like, all right, it's home time. I'm gonna head off to the hotel. See you guys tomorrow. And as
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of saying goodbye, in comes Z's Wireless and Mish. And I was like, oh, wow. It would be rude to leave when they've just got here. Like, it's good to say hello to these guys. And they sort of strategically sat, so they sort of boxed me in, so I couldn't quite leave yet. And so I was like, okay, I'll at least stay an extra half hour. We'll leave at
It's like,
9:30.
okay, all right.
Now, I, 9:25 comes around, 9:30. I'm like, all right, it's time to go. We've hit our thing. We're gonna go back to the hotel. Still a little jet lagged. We're gonna go back. In walks the casters. In walks Amanda and Tomahawk and the iconic Leonhardt, who I hadn't met before. And in
Mm-mm.
come the casters. In comes one of the judges as well. Like, in just comes this other contingent. And I'm like, wow. It'd be rude to leave when they just got here. So I don't know how late I was out, but it was a lot later than I intended, to say the least.
Well, and also knowing like your usual bedtime, that is very late for you.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if it counts when like time zones are involved because like you
Oh,
know.
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, we can.
Uh,
I'll allow it.
but I definitely thought that I would need the sleep for the next day, so it was a little bit of a ooh, oh
Mm.
well. But
Mm-mm.
hey, we
It's all right.
we got by. And I met Count Xevious for the first time as well, a long time
Mm-hmm.
still co-caster, I guess I should say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it was good hanging out with all those guys. Definitely had a lot of fun. Definitely also didn't get much vlog footage, so it is what it is. I think I got like maybe
Mm-mm.
2 clips of the gang. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it is what it is. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
eventually I get out of there. It was just a trap, but eventually I escape. I get to my hotel, and I go,
Mm-hmm.
"Me, me, 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 me." So
Mm-hmm.
game day. And
All right.
so
Saturday.
Saturday, I plan to go with the British guys,
Mm-hmm.
Aerobubble and Kalethnik. It was supposed to be with Adelian as well, but Adelian sort of got tapped on the shoulder. There was some like, I don't want to say natural disaster, but there was some like big storm or something in Spain. And so a lot of the
Ah.
judges and whatnot that were supposed to come from Spain got stuck and they couldn't come.
Yes, yes. There was a
So,
big thing in Spain.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Adelian got tapped to be stream runner when he was supposed to compete. And so he had to go in earlier. So it was me and the two other
Right.
UK guys. And we just, joint Ubered our way to the thingo.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of got ready for the day, I guess. And so I don't remember how many groups there were, but I know that I was in group B.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to start playing at like 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
But we all still had to rock up at the same time, even though group A was going to do like a couple rounds before us.
Yep. Yep.
And to be honest, just rigged, gypped, because the very first part of the stream, they do this sort of community vote, right? Of like, which
Mm-hmm.
match are we going to broadcast first? And
Yes.
all of pod A and pod B had to rock up like early, so like before
Mm-hmm.
they figured out who they would pick from.
Yes.
And they just picked all from Group A, and us poor Group B Andys just had to sit idly by, kick rocks, and be like, "Yeah, that's fine, I guess." Which, as a community that does not get much in the way of streaming,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I didn't realize how much that. Well, I sort of realized it after watching a few now that they really just stick
Mm-hmm.
to certain groups and not others, and it's kind
Yeah.
of luck of the draw a little bit. So, say there's a
Mm-hmm.
4 group tournament: A, B, C,
Mm-hmm.
D. A and
Mm-hmm.
B will generally play similar time. C and D will generally play similar time, but they'll
Mm-hmm.
always stick to like Group A until they can't anymore, and they'll stick to Group
Mm-hmm.
C until they can't
Yeah.
anymore. And so you
Mm-hmm.
get a bit more storyline action. You see Rise to
Yes.
Occasion come on once and come on again and come on again, but it
Mm-hmm.
does mean that everyone in Group B is just sort of like off to the wayside. So it's like
Yeah. Because
they'll.
we were streaming that while you were playing,
Mm,
and we saw it, and we were just like, "Where's PvP Steve? Like, who are these people? We don't know any of these people." I chose not to vote because I was like, "No, I don't know any of them. You are not getting
yeah.
my whatever like channel points."
I mean, to be fair, I didn't vote either, but yeah, so I ended up not getting on stream after that one. Although I was on the players to watch, which they had to pull out my photo
Yeah,
from OCIC. Which,
I know. Such a baby.
yeah,
2 years ago, or almost two. Almost two. It's two.
almost
Yeah.
year and a half.
Gosh.
But
Mm-mm.
yeah, RIP OCIC, I guess. The only time that
Mm.
most of us have ever got one of those photos with a phone, one of the classic arms crossed set of
Yep. Yeah.
shots.
Like the,
Uh,
the footy pose. Yeah.
yeah, they fished it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so not going to be on. I think if I made it to winners round 3, I would get on
Mm-hmm.
stream. So that was sort of
Yes.
that's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So winners round 1, I go in, and I should probably pull up my own Draco viz, to be honest, because
Mm.
they've updated it for Gdańsk. They haven't updated it for Buenos Aires, but
Mm-mm.
I play this guy Lord Blumen, who didn't like. We actually had the bracket like the day before, and so I sort of
Mm-hmm.
looked this guy up, and I'm just looking at him again now, and I was like, oh, his first tournament, he went to top 16. I was like, oh,
All
okay,
right.
this is like
Mm-hmm.
a legitimate go, and he was just outside of top 32 at Stockholm, and
Mm-hmm.
this was his third ever tournament, so I was like, oh, okay, like
Mm-hmm.
this isn't going to be an easy go, but
Mm-hmm.
ended up, getting the win out. So we won winners round 1, and so yeah,
Mm-hmm. Good.
first game of the trip, I was like, heck yeah, dude, we got this. Except that
Mm-hmm.
I knew who my round 2 opponent was going to be as well if I won,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Yes.
was another name that was going to be a little bit difficult. Not only difficult in the battlefield,
Mm-hmm.
but difficult to pronounce
Yeah.
because it's I'm looking at the letters here, and it's like Araguikian. I've got no clue, dude. ARRE Ara Guik GUIIKDN. It's like I don't know how you're supposed to say it, but they were like they played at Honolulu, so it was
Mm-hmm.
like okay, like they beat Padaman at Worlds.
Yep.
So I was
Yep.
like, okay, we've got a legitimate contender here, and they'd just come off of a top 8 performance at was it Dortmund or Lille? I should be looking at their thing. It was
Mm-hmm.
Dortmund.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, okay, this might not go well. And yeah, it didn't go well. Is the truth. I sort of got I got super talon flamed, and
Mm.
yeah, just sort of got overwhelmed a little bit by a player that was better than me. So I was like, I didn't feel bad losing. I was like, yeah, this is fair enough.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
I should probably mention as well, big shout out to Yakko because we sort of built this team. I'll say we.
Mhm.
It's giving. It's putting a lot of weight on the we term. Uh,
Ah.
Yakko might have had some pretty heavy input on that one.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, we were in a Discord call for a while, sort of putting the team together. We actually prepared for a more Peko meta and a more Peko ban meta because no one knew
Mm.
where it was going to land yet because
Yep.
there were in-game issues, and we didn't know if
Mhm,
Niantic
mhm,
was fixing them, how quick the fixes would get into the game. There were rumors
mhm,
swirling that Niantic had the fix ready, but
mhm,
whether it was going to be implemented, we didn't know.
mhm,
But yeah, didn't get into the game in time, so I was like, okay. We go with the known Morpeko team. And
mhm,
so the Pokemon I wanted to run was Skarmory, because
mhm,
Skarmory looks pretty good as a core breaker into the meta.
mhm.
And looking at the sort of last few weeks of the meta, and we talked about this in the last episode about how turbulent this current meta has been, with everything seeming
Yeah.
to super change every single week.
Mhm,
And so in my head, it was like, okay, you only win this thing if you're one step ahead. So I was like,
mhm,
okay, well, Skarmory's going to be my guy. I'll bring
mhm,
in the Skarmory and we'll see how we do. And I
mhm,
don't regret the Skarmory bring, to be honest. I think it was a
mhm,
good bring.
mhm, mhm.
It's just that, yeah, my team ended up being a little bit weak to Talonflame,
Yeah.
and I got punished for it. So yeah, he
Mm.
got me in round 2, but that was fine. So I was like, okay,
Mhm,
we missed the stream here, but sort of the main aim, I guess, wasn't to get on stream. It was to get to top
mhm.
32, because top
Yep.
32 would get championship points.
Mhm.
And if I got championship points at 2 of the 3 tournaments I was going to be playing in, then I would lock in a travel award. So I was like, hey, free money. All right, let's do this thing.
Free.
Free. No, not at the cost of my flights. Let's just say, even getting travel award, I would be in the red by
So,
some margin.
so welcome to this section of the podcast where we talk about Steve's GoFundMe. Please click
Yeah,
on the link below to
there's
help
no link below.
pay back some of his flights and accommodations.
There's
Yeah,
no
that'd be
GoFundMe link below. Do not do not
there.
scroll. But well, I mean, I guess there were some other things that maybe I should have set up a GoFundMe for, but I did not.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We'll get to it for those that are not aware of what transpired later in the piece.
Mm.
But so I've been knocked down, and this is I complained about this in the Discord. I guess complained is the correct word. It was an unfortunate reality where if you lost winners round 2, you
Mm.
actually got shot back to losers round 1, which was like, oh, that's so lame. The whole point of like
Mm.
winning in the winners bracket is you're like halving your path to the championship, right? Like
Mm, mm,
every
mm,
win in
mm.
winners bracket is supposed to count for 2 wins in losers bracket. But
Yeah.
yeah, the way that the sort of tournament structure went with the number of players, the win in winners bracket was meaningless, and I just got
Yeah.
knocked straight back to the start.
Yeah.
And so winners round 1, I'm up against this other guy, the Autistic Mage is his in-game name,
Mhm. Mhm.
and game 1 goes swimmingly because he's triple
Mhm.
weak to Ariados and I bring Ariados. So I was like, oh, this is a cakewalk. This will
Yep.
be like,
Yep.
I've got this one in the bag.
Mhm.
We're going to go on to round 2. I'll
Mhm.
be playing Kalethnik, the one of the British guys that I was
Mhm.
riding with to the event.
Mhm. Mhm.
Happy days. Unfortunately, game 2, I make the throw of throws because going into this sort of event, this trip,
Mm.
something that I'd been putting a lot of work into was sort of learning how to count moves properly.
Mhm.
And I've given this reflection to Debbie after the fact, but once you learn how to count moves, you don't understand how you played before you counted moves. All of a sudden, it's like you just know so much, and it's like, how was I doing okay before this? I have no idea. It's kind of ridiculous that like just yeah,
Yeah.
just join in Debbie at some point. It's well worthwhile. Well,
What,
maybe not.
counting?
Yeah, so first comes 1, then you go 2
Oh, do you
after
go
that,
like
and
in between?
I do get that reference. I know that one. Um,
You're young enough to.
yeah, I grew up on that guy. um, but yeah. So essentially, what happens is that because
Mm.
I'm counting moves, I know for a fact I
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a super boosted Ariados looking down the barrel of a Mandibuzz on the other side.
Right.
And I know that I'm going to be able to like throw 2 lunges and carry this Mandibuzz. But
Okay.
in the back on their side is a Dunsparce that is 1 rollout away from the charge attack. And so a rollout is 3 turns, Poison
Yes.
Sting is 2 turns. So
Yes.
once I carry this Mandibuzz, I just need to be 1 Poison Sting away from the charge move to carry this Dunsparce, and I'll win the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
all I have to remember. Be 1
Yep.
away from the move, I win.
Mm-hmm.
And Debbie, for some reason, I click on the charge move when I am 2 Poison Stings away, which means that the rollout comes through, gets the move, I'm gone. I'm like, oh, dang it. That is a very unnecessary throw. So whoopsie doopsies. So I'm like, all right. And then unfortunately, game 3, I just get alignmented. I just get. I don't want to say RPS because I think that RPS doesn't exist as much in the current meta as much. There is still very much RPS afoot, but it was just hard alignment. Like I do have it written down in my. Oh wait, I threw it out. Oh whoops. I was gonna say I have it written down in my book. That I was sort of like writing notes for counts and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of my trip, I actually binned it to make room in my suitcase because I was like, I've used up all the pages. I don't need this anymore. I do have the in the vlog footage, I think I actually specified which Pokemon I used. So I should actually remember. But that's an oopsie on my part. I didn't think about the fact that I might need that. My bad. But yeah, I just got hard alignment and lost that one, unfortunately, which meant I was outie. So
just to add it to the bucket of lost material.
yeah, there was a few things lost on this trip. Yikes. But also, not only did I get knocked out of this tournament, which I was very disappointed. Like I was super bummed because I was like, I should have won that. I felt like I had a legitimate shot at top 32 with the way that the bracket was unfolding. I was like, there's no, I'm not going to get hard destroyed in the losers run up to the point where I would get to top 32. So I had a real shot. And just getting knocked out, I was like, man, double Elim sucks. Where's Swiss? Give me another shot.
Yeah. I definitely got that vibe, not only from you, but from the another Australian after LAIC. I was just like, what's all this heavy Swiss talk suddenly? And then I'm like, oh, because I spent all this money to go overseas and double limbed out.
Yeah, I think this other Australian was definitely more focused on the money than I was. I was just like, I want championship points.
Yeah.
I was hoping for a better performance than I landed. And the problem is that because I got knocked back to losers round 1, is that I tied for last. I got to win. I got to win. And I'm tied with everyone that went 0-2. It's like, oh, man. This. Actually, not only that, I've also lost to anyone that got a bye into round 2 and then went 0-2. Like some of them beat me. So it's like I got scammed, man, on that front. But yeah, I threw the losers bracket around. So as I said, I was fine with losing the one in the winners bracket. I was salty about losing that one in the losers bracket because I was like, I should have won that.
Yeah.
So look, it was unfortunate. And I'd never been in this spot before, in that the worst I'd ever done in a tournament was 2-2. It's like, and that's not even counting the sort of free wins, like the buys, because I think my average record looks pretty decent when you factor in no-shows. But even just ignoring no-shows, I think the worst I've done is 2-2. And so to drop down to 1-2, I'm like, ooh, like this is the most prepared I've ever been for a tournament. This is the best I've ever been at PvP. Like I'm counting moves, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But it's my worst result ever. And at the time, I was actually a little bit like, well, I don't want to let the Australian side down. I don't want to add to this discourse that oh man, Australians suck. The tournaments are harder in Europe, yada yada yada. I'm like, oh man,
Mm. You, I don't think you need to feel that pressure at all. Like, you know, it's it's how it is sometimes. You are
I
the
don't think there's
one
any
sole
pre.
Australian in Gdańsk. Like you didn't have to rest the entire nation on your shoulders. It's okay.
I think I said in a response to, maybe it was like a tweet from Amanda. I was like,
Mm.
"Hey, I was the top Aussie performer at Gdańsk." Like, bit of a legend around these parts. But
So I've heard.
um, but yeah, so it was a little
Mm.
unfortunate.
Mhm.
I And so, like, I was sort of probably bummed for like, hour and a
Mm.
half, and like it's not,
Mhm.
again, not a feeling I'm used to. One, because usually I do pretty decent regardless, but also
Mhm.
because I'm usually not invested in doing well. Like if I do badly, then it's like, if I went in at Sydney Regionals with my Wailmer, Shadow Wallow and Muck team and I went 0-2, I'd be like, yep,
Mhm.
fair play. Like we,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
expected this
yeah.
outcome.
Uh-huh.
But instead of going in practiced and ready to go, yeah, it was
Mhm.
unfortunate. But, it
Mhm.
is what it
Mhm.
is, So now I've got a 65th on my little Dracoviz player profile, but um,
Mhm.
is what it is on that front. So, I was one for a bit, but I sort of bounced back there was a cup and a challenge, which, by the way, this is
Mhm.
also a foreign concept to Australian regionals, having
Mm.
local tournaments that award championship points on the same weekend in venue. For those that are not aware,
In
we have not
venue.
had this ever. Like, to
Wow. What a
it's crazy.
treat.
Not only did they have a cup and a challenge on one day, but they had a
Mhm.
challenge on like the other day. So maybe it was just a challenge on this day, actually, now that I think about it. So
Mm.
there were two challenges and a cup for those that had sort
Mhm.
of been knocked out of the main tournament. So like even people that
Yeah.
went 0-2, you actually still
Uh-huh.
have an opportunity to play extra rounds of battles. So it's kind of like,
Mm-mm-mm.
would be nice to have our way. But
Yep.
so I sort of bounced back in playing this challenge, not in the sense that I do well, because I
Mhm.
don't, I don't think I don't remember how I went. I
Mhm.
probably went like 2-3 or something. I don't
Yep,
I don't
yep.
quite remember.
Mhm.
Maybe I actually went 3-2. It's irrelevant. The important thing, I guess, in my mind is that it was the bounce back point where we were having fun again. It was like,
Yeah.
it's not about the quality of the battles. I made a
Mhm.
few more Europeans like Penny Wamix, who's on the Tea and Pizza
Mhm.
faction, who was an absolute delight. At
Mhm.
first, I'm going to be honest, I thought this guy was Maximilian P because he said his name was Max, and I was like, Max, European. I know one of them. So I was just like, oh, he must be
Mhm.
that guy.
Mhm.
But turns out no. But like, yeah, he was a hoot. Um,
Mhm.
there was some other, plenty of other guys who were playing these tournaments as well. I've got
Mhm. Mhm.
strong memories of constantly safe swapping Shadow Alol and Shadow Kato Marowak and having Mandibuzz swap in because Penny Wamix, something that he was sitting next to me battling, and he was like, I've looked over 3 times over the course of these battles, and every time I look over, your Kato Marowak is facing a Mandibuzz. What are you doing? I was like, don't know what to tell you, man.
Uh, I just like I just like soft losing.
Yeah, I don't think it's called a soft loss in that matchup. That's called really trying to do anything I can to try and RPS this puppy. um,
Mhm.
but yeah, Mandibus was never in the lead, unfortunately. Anyway,
Mhm.
so there's a sort of a bounce back, and then I'm feeling good for the rest of the weekend. There's plenty of social
Mhm.
action. It's a bit of fun. There was
Mhm.
a sort of a main social on the Saturday that I did miss because
Mm.
I went and had dinner with, I guess, the casters, and obviously
Mhm.
more than just the four, but like sort of the
Mhm.
casters group. And the original
Yeah.
plan was we'd sort of go and have dinner and then make
Mhm.
it back to the social.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is not how things worked out. We were,
Oh.
I think the food took quite a while to get out,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
the place we were eating was sort of like really close to their hotel
Mhm.
and relatively far from where the social actually was. So
Mm.
they were kind of like, I don't know if I want to go all the way. So I was like, look,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm happy to stick around. Like,
Mhm.
It was one of those things where like I don't know what the vibe was at the social. I don't know how late the social
Mm.
was going to go. I don't know if
Yeah, yeah.
like at this point it might have been like 9 p.m. or something, and so I don't know if
Mhm.
I'm going to head over there and it's going to end. I get it. It takes me an hour to get over, and then it's done by 11, or I get
Yeah,
over there and it finishes at 3. I don't know.
yeah,
So I sort of go
yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, let's play it safe, and let's just hang
Mhm.
around. And
Mhm.
we ended up being up pretty late. And this was a
Mhm.
surprise as well, by the way. The European casters,
Mhm.
they just don't seem to respect sleep. They're just like, hey, we bowl.
Oh.
We'll be up tomorrow and be fine. And I'm just looking at them like, what the heck? Like it at OCIC, those guys were taking it serious. They were like going to bed. Like, what's
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah.
So we were up pretty late on the
Mhm.
Saturday
Mhm.
night, but had a good time with those guys. I learned that most of Europe calls it ketchup, not tomato sauce. Who knew?
I thought
Uh,
ketchup's so American though.
that's what, it's okay. I'm so glad you said that because essentially this is how it happened, right? So
Yeah.
I'm ordering dinner. Obviously, I'm ordering well, I think I was ordering some sort of chicken, probably
Of course. Yeah.
naturally. It's either that or a
Mm.
plain burger. And so I was like, well, I
Mhm.
want tomato sauce.
Mhm.
And so I don't even think about it. But as I'm ordering, can I have a chicken
Yeah,
tender or
yeah.
whatever? And then I pause and
Uh-huh.
I go, oh heck, what do they call? What do they call like that sauce here? And so
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I I literally say like I sort of pause and I clearly struggle. I'm like, I don't know what you call it here. Tomato sauce, um, um,
Yeah.
ketchup, and everyone at the table is like, "What is wrong with you? What do you mean?"
They're
Can't
like,
get
"Is Steve
destroyed.
is Steve having a seizure? What's going on?"
Well, they were saying like afterwards, like tomato sauce, like pasta sauce. Like, what do you? But it's like it's clearly such a struggle for me, and they were just like, "You are so dumb." And then I turned to like I Google it. I'm like, "Who
Mhm.
calls it tomato sauce?" And it's like Australia, and it says like
Mhm.
UK. And so I turned to Tomahawk UK, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you must call it tomato sauce." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. We call it ketchup." And I'm just
No, no.
so yeah.
Tomato
Turns
sauce it
out
is.
ketchup.
No,
Ketchup
no
is
ketchup. No.
well, if you want to get served chicken nuggies with pasta sauce while you're in Europe, go ahead. But turns out ketchup is the way. Who knew?
Mhm.
You'd think like after I had spent like 2 weeks in Italy, like a couple months before, that I would have got a clue,
Mhm.
but apparently not. Apparently, I missed that memo. So, whoops. Um, I got my ketchup in the end anyway. It's whatever. Um, but oh, which actually, I'll bring that. I'll bring it up later. There's a
Mm-mm.
callback to this story later.
Oh, oh dear.
Um, so eventually we end up
Mhm.
getting to bed. And like,
Mhm.
I'm walking through the streets of Poland at like,
Mhm.
however, whatever PM, whatever AM,
Mhm.
the
Yeah, yeah.
15-minute walk back to my hotel. Bum, 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 bum.
Mhm.
Eventually we get there.
Mhm.
Sunday
Mhm.
time. Championship Sunday. Although, it's a bit bigger than Championship Sunday because it's a 2-day
Mhm.
event. So,
Yep, yep.
don't know if you can
Mhm.
really call it that. But, we
Yep,
rock
yep.
in.
Day 2.
Yeah, day 2, and there's a cup and a
Mhm.
challenge.
Mhm.
In one of I think in the challenge I must have run Wailmer on day 1. I think that's why. And I remember I lost every battle that I brought Wailmer. So I don't know what that's
Ah,
about. Must have
ah.
just got unlucky. It has nothing to do with how good or bad
Mm.
Wailmer is for sure,
Yeah.
because this guy's a
Mhm.
legend. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think in the cup I just run my regional team again. In the challenge, I think I go back and I run Wailmer a second time. But
Because day 1 wasn't hard enough. Day 2 it was like, all right,
yeah,
let's run it back. Let's see. Maybe it's just bad
yeah,
luck.
yeah. I was just unlucky. It'll go better this time.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't, again,
And
I
was
don't
it?
remember. I don't think that the correct answer would be yes, but who's to say, really? I mean, the scores aren't public. I don't remember how I went, so and for some reason, I don't have any of the footage from these tournaments. But
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so I don't do well, but I'm having a great time.
Mhm.
And so it was good to hang out with these guys. Like I lost to a lot of the people, especially in day two, that had sort of done very well in the tournament. That were sort of like just
Mm.
jumping into these locals because they were around,
Yes.
either because they were waiting for their matches later in the day, or because they'd been knocked out at like top 16 or something. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's getting tough. uh, the day goes on, and
Mhm.
because we haven't really talked about the tournament, and Debbie, I don't know if this is going to be like our main talking about Gdansk, but
Mm.
it is just worth mentioning, I guess, that Gdansk was certainly very much in the spice sense of things, in that the top two teams from
Mm.
Tonton Batus and Ziz Wireless were
Mm.
bonkers.
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
so like,
I remember and a lol
Tonton.
and Radicate.
Yeah, Alolan Eradicate won the tournament from Tonton Batus. It had gone
Mhm.
like I think it placed in ninth. We talked about it. Placed ninth in the previous European regional.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think it landed on stream because I
Mhm.
remember going back and trying to find battles from Alolan Eradicate and I couldn't find any.
Yeah.
So I think they must
Mhm.
have lost in losers bracket pretty early on. Well, not early on, but made a losers run and got knocked out before getting on stream. But anyway,
Right. Mhm.
Tauntaun won this thing with a Charge Bug, Alolan Eradicate team, which is like,
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
all right, dude, what the heck? Very Tauntaun Batus, to say the least.
Mhm. Mhm.
Second place was Z's Wireless with Shadow Driftbloom, Magnezone, Pangoro squad,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
was he was just mopping up the floor with like every other team. Like he was just really crushing. And
Mhm.
talking to him after the event, he said something along the lines of, "I'm incredibly happy with how I've played because not a
Mm.
single one of my losses through the entire tournament was due to a mistake. The
Mm. Mm.
Every single loss was due to, well, the only mistake that he made was team selection. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
any game he lost due to team, and he
Yep.
was very happy with that. And by the way,
Yeah.
I loved hanging out with Twilight. He's such a good guy. Like, um, I'll talk about that more in a sec, I guess. But yeah, he sort of when he went into the grand finals against Tonton,
Mhm. Mhm.
he sort of said in like the pre-interview that like um, Tonton pretty much has the worst possible team for my team.
Mhm.
My main goal here is to get one battle win because that is the best I can hope for against Tonton. Like I've lost this thing
Mhm.
already unless I get crazy lucky.
Mhm.
Um, and they played in the winners finals and then going to the grand finals. He made this comment, something along the lines of, "I saw this movie once set in France about a rat cooking, and uh, obviously Tonton being a Frenchman with a Lol and Radicate on the team,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it was it was a pretty solid reference on his part.
Mm.
But
Mm. Mm.
yeah,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
that rat was definitely cooking. But
It was.
there are a few other things running around as well. Actually, two main Pokemon I want to highlight. One
Mhm.
being Dragapult from Uden, who ended up coming in fourth.
Yes.
And he
Mhm.
was actually at the Casa dinner as well. And he was sort of doing some
Mhm.
scrims at the table against
Mhm.
Zweilis, who was going to be
Mhm.
his first opponent of day two.
Mhm.
And Dragapult was just a bit of a crazy read in that I'd never thought about it before. It has Astonish, so it
Mhm.
just does a lot of hard, fast move damage.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I didn't have one yet, so I couldn't even think about running it for the next week in Buenos Aires or any of the couple
Yeah.
of challenges or whatever. But
Mhm.
it's a fun pick.
Mhm.
And the other one is actually one that I wanted to run for Gdansk. I was
Mhm.
talking to Fishy Legs about it. I was talking to Yakko about it, and it's Galissapod, or turns
Mm.
out as it's actually called Galysapod, but
Mhm.
gross.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Padoman landed up in top 6 with Galissapod. I think I
Mhm.
sent Fishy Legs a message that was just like, dude, Galysapod. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
That would have never been on my radar because it's Uggo.
yeah.
Yeah.
But look,
It's got good coverage. It's got good coverage.
it does. Although it's one of those because I was doing a relatively deep dive into it, talking to Fishy Legs, and it's one of those mons that like it's got a lot of move options in terms of both fast move and charge move.
Mhm.
and you really wish you had more than just the just the one fast two charge. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, if I pick these two moves, then I lose these matchups. If I pick these two
Yeah.
moves, I lose these matchups. It's like, oh,
Mhm. Mhm.
obviously Pato Man made it work, so good on
Mhm.
him.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess. Well, and then the Sunday social, and this is
Mhm.
actually my main criticism of the
Mhm.
European community, in that,
Mhm.
unlike, so as we know, in Australia, we do these
Mhm.
regionals, and then after the
Yep.
regionals done, for the most part, we all sort of end up at the one place, and we
Mhm.
eat, drink, chat, whatever.
Yep. Yep.
In Europe, it's much more, and I don't think I have a good word for this, and I think I want to put a lot of asterisks around this word because it's wrong. But the first word
Mhm.
that comes to mind is like clicky, in the sense that like everyone is sort of in their own groups, and
Mhm.
every group sort of has their own social plan. So like,
Mhm.
in the sense that there was no big, everyone is obviously going to this place on the Sunday after the tournament.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like, I don't know where Tonton and the French community went because they weren't where I
Mhm.
was. Like,
Yep.
so
Yep.
everyone was sort of a bit more scattered. And
Mhm.
so like,
Mhm.
I didn't know where I was going. And so I ran
Mhm.
into Fazberry again, and he
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, there's murmurings that the British guys are going to end up at this
Mhm.
place."
Mhm.
And so we were like, "Well, I don't have any better plans. I don't know where anyone's going, so I guess that'll
Yeah.
work.
Mhm.
Let's just
Mhm.
try going there." And so we rock up, and we see that there's the Tea and Pizza group had ended up there, and a
Mhm.
couple of the British guys had ended up there. So
Mhm.
like, those two groups had rocked up. And
Yes.
so we're there, we're hanging out, and a little while later, like,
Mhm.
the caster group sort of jumps in, and then like,
Mhm. Mhm.
maybe Zweilous and Mish end up there, and this other
Mhm.
group that
Mhm.
ends up there, but it's very much just like everyone sort of comes in packets, and there were a lot of people. Like, there were not the 106 people or whatever it was registered for the tournament
Mhm.
at this
Mhm.
social. There were a lot of people that had either gone elsewhere or they were flying home or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But um,
Mhm.
yeah, I much prefer the Australian vibe of sort of everyone being in one spot. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, it's smaller, so it's a bit
Mhm.
easier and a bit more
Mhm.
logistical for that to happen. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be nice. Even just not there not being any
Mhm.
plans, like, or no default location to
Mhm.
go to. Like, even if like
Yeah.
one group had another plan to go do, the fact that there
Mhm.
wasn't an obvious like, well, if all else fails, let's go here sort of thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Mhm. It's all right. They just don't have the backyard barbecue vibes that we do.
yeah, exactly. I don't know where
Mhm.
you got that terminology, but
What
uh,
do you mean you don't know where you got that one from? It was from Zoe.
yeah. Um, well, shout out, by the way.
Mm,
What was I gonna say? Oh, right.
mm,
At this dinner, this is probably one of my favorite nights from the entire trip. It was the night
mm,
after day two.
mhm,
And there's sort of two, I guess three key events that sort of line up in my head. Um, and at the time, I think I described this to you, Debbie, as like the night had several chapters,
yes,
and like
I remember
each
you
chapter
saying
was
this.
quite distinct to different ones. And so the
Mhm,
three
mhm,
chapters that was the most stand out. Number one was um, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm blanking on his name. Kazim,
mhm,
um, who won a couple of regionals ago,
mhm,
and him and the Tea and Pizza guys, Penny Wamix and Nickname,
mhm.
and like we were sort of all around Kazim doing his GBL battles
Right, yes.
with bonkers teams. Like, he would pass the phone to Penny Wamix and be like, "Oh, we need Pangoro coverage." And Penny Wamix sits there and he thinks, and he's like, "I've got it, Vesperquin," and locks it in, and we're running this just ridiculous team.
Mhm.
I know Probopass was on one of the teams for a while, and it's like, oh, I'm sure that we needed coverage for some like Talonflame, and it's like, of course, Probopass. And listening to the banter in that sort of GBL, or I guess being a part of the
Mhm.
banter, in the sense of like, if we must have had like Rock Throw, Thunderbolt, and
Mhm.
you know, some Pokemon weak to Steel comes out, and like
Mhm.
nicknames like, "Where's our Magnet Bomb? Why do we not have Magnet Bomb?" And only for you know, the next thing to be in a Zoom room, it'd be like, "This is why we have Thunderbolt. Like this was heads up. This was great play. This was brilliant." Um, it's like there's nothing like you know, there's not much of a story to tell about it, but it is probably the
Mm.
most enjoyment I've had from Go Battle League. Um,
Mm, mm,
from
mm,
well the entire length, I suppose.
mm, mm, mm,
So it was an enjoyable time. Um,
mhm,
but then Zweilis and Mish rock up, and I'm like,
mhm.
oh well, I haven't actually spoken to Zweilis since he came second, so you know I want to
Yeah,
go, you know,
yeah.
say good day. And so I
Mhm,
sort of waddle over there, say congrats, end up sitting over
mhm.
there and never returning to the Teen Pizza guys on the other side. That was the end of that chapter. That was closed off.
Mm, mm,
And
mhm,
so instead, I'm sitting with like Zweilis, Mish. I think Count Xevious is to my left. Tomahawk is
mhm,
around, and it's Go Battle night. It's Go Battle weekend,
mhm.
and so
Yes.
you know there's this photo of you know all phones out playing Go Battle League, and
Mhm,
the Wireless is like, okay, well, I'm going to build a team, and I'm sitting across from
mhm.
him, so he's like, all right, Whalmer, and so he puts Shadow Whalmer in the middle, and
Mhm,
I don't remember what he put Shadow Dragonite in the back, and he was
mhm,
like, I need something for Weekly Tough, and so I'm just like, Ariados, go basic, and
mhm,
he's like, all right,
mhm,
Ariados,
mhm,
um, and so he's running Ariados, Shadow Whalmer, Shadow Dragonite. He jumps into Battle
mhm,
1, realizes very quickly that his Shadow Dragonite actually has Hurricane, not Superpower. And he's like, oh, that
mhm.
wasn't the plan. But then, like, after game 1, he's like, no, that was genius. We're locking in Hurricane. Like, we've got coverage for Zoom, we've got coverage for Toxapex. It's not an open team sheet, so they don't expect it.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so
mhm.
the man goes from like 2,700 up to like 2,850 running Shadow Whalmer, which on the one hand, if anyone can do it, Zweilis can do it. But
Mm.
also, like, it was also just very fun games in like you know, like we catch on Whalmer here, and just like, and you know, obviously Zweilis was putting full. His entire commentary was around how much Whalmer was the obvious carry. Like, this is
Mm, mm,
obviously
mm.
only because Whalmer is so good that we're doing so well. Like, I want to say that like he literally went 7-0 off rip. Like, he didn't lose a game for like 7 games straight away. Which is like, damn, this guy's good. And then I start
Mhm,
running it, and I
mhm.
also climb like 100 points. It's like, oh dang, this is pretty good.
Did you run
But
Shadow as well?
I actually didn't have a shadow with frustration removed. Turned out, so I had to run
Ah, come
my
on now,
Sydney
come on. No,
Regionals guy.
who
What?
just a bit of frustration, you can run it.
Yeah. Oh, that actually reminds me. There was some tournament that someone was running frustration.
Mm,
Uh, oh, I can't. Oh, it was. I think it might have been. Oh, it was one of Z-Tarb's opponents at LAIC,
mhm,
was running
mhm.
frustration Swampert. uh,
Love it.
Z-Tarb did win that one, but yeah, I,
Mm-mm.
I'm not sure if I mentioned it to you, but it did. I did just remember it. It's like, oh yeah, I meant to tell you about that, but
Were they top 12? No.
no, Debbie, you still have the record for the greatest performance of all time with frustration. So for now,
Until one day it
congrats.
gets taken over.
We'll see. We'll see. We wouldn't hold our breath, but
Mm,
um, yeah. I mean, I guess the other short bit, and we were there for a while. I moved around a bit more. We ended up back at the
mm,
Casters Hotel, sort of as a bigger group.
mhm,
And I guess the last memorable bit in my head was this group photo that we took.
mm, mm,
And
mm,
it's on Twitter, and there's Casters me, Wireless me, like, we're all sort of there,
mhm.
and we're all sort of getting into poses like on this weird structure that's in the hotel lobby,
Yeah, yeah.
and the Amanda ends up calling over one of the production guys, like
Mhm,
he might have been in charge of the cameras, and he sort of
mhm,
comes over and he's like, can you take the photo? It's like, okay, great,
mhm,
but he was like,
mhm,
our lighting isn't good enough. he calls over one of the other guys, and he like, gives him his phone with the torch on, and he's like, okay, stand there, hold it like this, angle it over there. And he's like, we need more light. And there ends up being 4 phones, all with the phone light on, like pointing in various spots in this group photo. And it's like, all right. And I think in I'm not sure whether like proper, like he took one on the proper camera, and he took some on like Amanda's phone and such. And so the one that I tweeted was the one that was from like Amanda's phone. And so you can actually see in the corner of the picture a phone sort of coming in from the side. It's so it was fun as well. But yeah, we ended up parting ways. I guess that's and for the most part that's the end of the Gdańsk tale. Like I do a little bit of tourism after the fact, but yeah. So Europe was, I mean, it was lovely. Obviously, I had a lot of fun meeting the people. I really particularly enjoyed spending time with Zweilous, Mish, and the casters, especially. Just very fun humans to hang around with, and to sort of look forward to hanging out with them a lot more in the future. Also, I don't think I even mentioned well, I did mention it, but hanging out with a Delian for the first time as well after many years of grassroots shenanigans. I ran into Normix as well, who runs Gym Breakers. But yeah, met a lot of human beings that had not met prior, so it was a good time.
Yeah, I'm sure they appreciated your company as well, and be like, the token Australian, the one that
diversity quota,
the one that didn't know what ketchup was.
I just assumed it was Europe. It's like, ketchup must be an American thing. That's just how it's ingrained in our heads. I really don't understand. I don't know how we have that perception, to be honest. Like, is it just because we're more likely to go to the US and like ketchup is everywhere? Is that just the only reason we're aware? Or is it because we get like US media? And
I think it's US media. I think it's US media. I think it's like, growing up with shows that are based in the US a lot more than European shows.
Yeah. I guess that checks out. But I don't know. I guess that there's also just that inherent assumption that most stuff that we have is probably originating from Europe. Like, we're using English UK rather than English US, to say the least.
Yeah, just didn't think that they would take that one, but there we go.
Yeah. It's allegedly some of UK, apparently not all of it, not wherever Tomahawk is from. He's ketchup user, apparently. But or he's just gaslighting me. I'm not sure which is true.
I don't know. All I know that he likes pancakes.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Him and Colin Six and Colin's brother. But yeah. So I guess that was Gdańsk.
And then you make the big trip over.
Yeah, flight number 1,000,000 over to Buenos Aires, Argentina. And so I'm going to be meeting Z-Tab, one of the other Australians that we've mentioned a few times on this episode, but also in the past, was going to be coming to Buenos Aires as well. He was going to be my other Aussie compatriot for the tournament. And so I get in on, it must have been like, maybe it was Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, but I get in. And in Buenos Aires, there's no sort of hard socials planned. And it's also only a one-day event on the Sunday. So that, book this venue, and TCG people, some of them are going to drop out or get knocked out before day 2. And so they sort of repurpose the space for the Go tournament on day 2. And so part of my time I sort of spend scrimming and sort of, again, in the back of my mind, I'm like, Morpeko could become legal. Spoilers, it does not become legal. And so I end up sort of deciding to run a new team. And I guess I hadn't decided on the team yet. So on the Friday, there was a local cup and challenge. And so it was the obvious, anyone that's coming to Buenos Aires, you end up at that cup and challenge. Yeah. Unfortunately, Z-Tab's flight was delayed, so he did not make it to the cup and challenge. And that's, a story he can tell another day, because there were some shenanigans on his trek over for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we end up at this cup and challenge, and I start messaging Nighttime Clasher, because we've both rocked up. I
Mhm.
think he actually messaged me after I tweeted out like,
Yep.
in Buenos Aires, blah 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 blah
Yeah,
blah.
yeah,
Yep, yep,
yeah.
yep, yep.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
And so he sends me a message like, "Hey, you going to this Cup and Challenge? Yada yada yada."
Mhm.
And so we're both going to rock up there. It's supposed to start at 5, and I think we're
Mhm.
both going to rock up at like 5:01. So we're kind of like, all right, oh,
Mhm. Mhm.
hopefully we're okay. We get there, 5:01. We
Mhm.
see each other, and we briefly met
Uh-huh.
at Worlds. I mean, you were there with
Mhm.
us, but we didn't
I
really
was.
chat.
Yeah.
And so we get there, we sort of walk in.
Mhm.
There's obviously a language barrier. Like
Mhm.
no, Eric, nighttime clasher Eric,
Mhm.
his Spanish is pretty decent, to be fair.
Mhm.
Like it's
Mhm.
obviously it's not fluent, but it's pretty conversational for the most part. Um
Yes.
you could tell what most people were saying,
Yes.
mostly. And
Mhm.
so I was actually pretty impressed with my level of Spanish ability that I didn't know I had, that I've clearly also just picked up from like US media. Like
Mhm.
I got by pretty decent, to be fair.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
not great at responding. Like my responses were all going to be one word responses. You were going to get a C out of me, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I could usually sort of piece together what was being asked.
Thank you, Dora the Explorer.
Now that one is a little bit after my time, I think. Was it?
Okay.
What? I don't know. I just know that I never watched it. Like Dora the Explorer
I'm not talking
release
about
date.
the movie.
Oh, it came out in 2000. Ah, interesting. I assumed it was later, to be honest, but yeah. Uh, although there's a story that my mother sometimes tells about the fact that I was watching Scooby Doo in Spanish for no obvious reason. Just
Yeah.
hola Scooby. So maybe it was ingrained from that. Who knows? But anyway, we
Yep.
rock in, we get registered, and we go into this little side room that's not very big. It's got enough
Mhm.
room for like 12 people. And we
Mhm.
rock in, and there's like 5 guys there. And one of them
Mhm.
was like a TCG guy, and I think the other 4
Mhm.
were planning to compete. And so we sort of sit
Mhm.
down and we're like, all right, like, I'm
Mhm.
sure we'll start pretty soon. 5:10,
Mhm.
5:20. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
we kicking this thing off.
Mhm.
5:30. We're both like looking around, like me and Eric just keep looking at each other, like, what the heck is going on? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
are we starting? And like 2 more guys rock up and they register. And it's
Mhm.
like, all right, well,
Mhm.
we're waiting for them to
Mhm.
register. 5:40. It's like,
Okay. So nearly an hour's
guys,
going.
yeah, this is supposed to start at 5. What is happening here?
Mhm. Mhm.
Little did we know, nothing in South America starts on time. They're like, rule of thumb, not one
Mhm.
thing actually starts on time. Like
Mhm.
sometimes around here, it's like, you rock up before. You have to rock up early so that,
Mhm.
when 5 hits, you're going.
Yes.
Latin America, and, I kept sort of telling people about this stuff and they sort of responded with
Mm.
stories of their own. It very much seems like it's a vibe of 5 is when you start to rock up. It's like, you don't need to be there by 5. It's like, and this will be a
Uh,
recurring theme through the weekend,
okay.
turns out. So
Mhm. Mhm.
eventually we end up starting this tournament.
Mhm.
And I how do I do? I think I end up going like 2-3 or something in the challenge
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
and running it's a bit of a hodgepodge of a team.
Mhm.
I think it was pretty similar to the team I was running in. Actually, I think I was just running my Gdańsk team, and I think I went 2-3.
Mhm.
I was like, all right,
Mhm.
that's all right. And then we do the cup, and the cup is
Mhm.
much bigger. Like a lot of people have sort of only rocked out for the cup, and so like there's
Yeah.
everyone. Like we've got Mato Golde, Swagron,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
you know, future regional winner Nezabethan is there,
Mhm.
and just like all of these really really top battlers. It's like this is
Mhm.
24 people. I mean, nighttime clasher, a
Mhm.
Liverpool champion,
Mhm.
Desynct, 2 times
Mhm.
special event champion, super like multiple
Mhm.
time champion. Harjeff, Steiner, like
Mhm.
these just huge. JW Naldo as well, another LAIC
Mhm.
winner. So
Mhm.
I don't remember the exact numbers that I put in that tweet, but it was like, 2 IC winners, 4 regional special event winners, super stacked.
Mhm.
And your boy ends up in top 8 with some championship points, baby. It's like, woo.
Yay!
It was also with a hodgepodge of a team in that I took my Gdańsk team and
Mhm.
I swapped out like maybe like Skarmory for Galarian Moltres because I was looking to run
Mhm.
Galarian Moltres in the tournament. So I was like, well, I've never
Mhm.
used it before. Let's try it.
Mm,
And then
mhm.
I was really weak to Dunsparce in the challenge, and so I replaced like Drapion with Pangoro. I hadn't looked at these teams. I didn't know how well it was going to go, but I ended up, eking into top 3. And along the way, like I took out Nezabethan, who it was a dispute game 3. It's like we were 1-1, and then game 3, he sort of lagged out at the very end, and it was like probably like, I don't know, maybe 80% chance he wins, 20% chance I win. But we're kind of like, well, there's a chance I win, so I guess we rematch. And I ended up winning the rematch. So take out Nezabethan, and then also take out Marto Golde on this.
Look at this guy go.
Freak. So I was like, hey, we got this thing. All right. I'm not washed. We're fine.
Should be calling you the Kingslayer.
Yeah, well, that's about all I did. So that's
just take it, okay?
Yeah. But I walked out with 25 championship points. So I was like, hey, it's not the top 32 championship points we were looking for from Gdańsk, but 25 is 25. So we take that for sure. And so,
absolutely.
What I haven't mentioned is that in this cup and challenge that was supposed to start at 5 p.m. We were there late. It was. I did not get back to the hotel till like, it was after midnight. That's for sure.
Yeah. I remember messaging you and being like, what do you mean you're still playing? Like, I thought you were like, because like you weren't responding, which I'm like, okay, yeah, he's probably gone to bed or something like that. Then I was just like, then you're like, you gave me a score update. And I was like, what do you mean there's a score update? What time is it? Because like while you were traveling, I had on my phone all the clocks in different regions. So I was just like, I'm like, no, you're in Argentina. It's not like Gdańsk time now. Like, you should be well into bed. No, still playing.
Yeah, so the internet turned out to be not great for the number of people that were there. Again, 24 people competing. And so they ended up like by round 3, they were sort of like, okay, let's run it half and half. So 12 people battle at a time, 12 people wait, then the other 12 jump in. By round 5, they were sort of doing like, okay, we're only going to have like 3 battles going at once. Like as soon as one battle finishes, the next battle can sub in. It was like, all right. And then there was Top Cut, where it was top 8 Top Cut. So there was another 3 rounds. And there were a few rematches that sort of had to be played out as well. So it was a very long tournament. And, shout out to 7 out of 8 of the top 8 as well, because I sort of mentioned as maybe top 8 was starting, I was like, I want to get a photo of like the top 8, and timing just sort of didn't work out, and it's like people were like, okay, I kind of want to go, but I'll stick around for the photo. 35 minutes later, people are still battling. We haven't got the photo. It's like, oh, sorry, gang. And people are still being like, Steve wants the photo, so we'll wait. And I'm sitting there like, no, I didn't mean it. You can
we
go.
do it for PvP Steve. PvP Steve, we stay around. Okay, yeah, all right. Steve wants a photo.
Yeah. So, we got the photo, but
an hour later.
It was late, so shout out to everyone for sort of sticking around. But I got to meet a lot of people again for the first time that were sort of recurring characters, both through Buenos Aires and LAIC. Like I met Real Dante, who was just a lovely dude. And I should mention as well, I think Buenos Aires was the most friendly isn't quite the right word, but potentially the most welcoming in terms of like, everyone was super happy for everyone to be around. They really, it was very reminiscent of Australian tournaments in the level of community that there was, but one layer above, in that Australia is relatively insular, in that there's not really like others that sort of like come in. Like we don't get many international travelers in Buenos Aires. On top of being just a really tight cohort already, they're also really quick to accept everyone else into that cohort. It's like, it's lovely. So
you became one of them pretty quickly.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
well, did you say you got like you look like a local while you were in Argentina? I just assumed that you were.
I don't know if looked like. Well, yeah, I don't know if looked like a local is the most correct way of framing it in one sense, but I did experience sort of multiple times, like, at airports, whatever else, you could sort of watch a lot of staff sort of every time someone walked up to them, they sort of had to choose, do I speak
Mhm.
in English or do I speak in Spanish? And so,
Mm-mm.
most people that spoke English, they got the English treatment. But
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, I walk up to one of these guys that are sort of like flipping language based on what they see. I'm going to hit with the
Mhm.
Spanish. So I was like, all right. And like, I was probably half the time I got by. I was like, hola, sí. Uh, you know, we, gracias. We made our way through
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
most of it. And then like sometimes I had to
Yeah.
hit them with the, uh, mi español es no bueno. Oh, no, it's fine. But yeah, I
Mhm,
had to
mhm,
bring that one out a few times, but
mhm.
we yeah, it was a good time. And that was sort of
Mhm.
like the pseudo social on the Friday. And by the same
Yes.
token, the pseudo social on the Saturday was a
Mhm.
practice tournament that started at 2 p.m. Or
Mm.
should I say, scheduled for starting at 2 p.m. What if I tell
Mm.
you that me, nighttime clasher, Z-Tab, we rock up at 2 p.m. for Rego, and then we leave and go get lunch. We just leave the place. We're like, this is not
Mm.
starting on time. We probably like
Mhm.
we sort of bump around a few places where we're supposed to get food. Like one of
Mhm.
them was like it said accepts card on the window. They did not accept
Mhm.
card. So it was a bit of a triumph to actually try and get food.
Mhm.
And so we get back like 40 minutes later. As we're walking back, like Marto is
Mhm.
messaging nighttime and he's like,
Mhm.
yeah, dude, we're just about to start round 3. And, we rock up and obviously they haven't started.
Oh, Marto.
We knew there was no universe that they had got to round 3. But
Mhm.
it was an interesting venue as well because it was sort of like in a basement. So like data was terrible, but they did have decent
Mhm.
Wi-Fi. But it was so
Mhm.
hot, like it was
Mm.
ridiculously just human hot in that like
Mhm.
packed
Mhm.
space with like all these other
Yeah.
games playing as well. And
Yeah.
so like most Go players were just playing in the street out the front. I spent most of mine
Mhm.
just sort of sitting on the sidewalk, doing my thing, writing notes in
Yeah.
my little book on my lap. It was, which, again, it didn't go as late. Like maybe it went till like 7 p.m. or something. I'm not sure. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, again, it was sort of a very, very community vibe, very just hang out. Like this is the social, just playing PvP,
Yeah.
which is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a unique experience
Hmm.
on the trip, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't get it often, I suppose.
No.
But
Mm-mm-mm.
I think Eric went out and sort of had drinks with the guys. Z-Tab and I. Z-Tab was like he had only just rocked in that morning and was
Yeah.
lacking some sleep, so he needed to get back. And
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, look, I'm happy to rock back.
Mhm.
So we ended up walking like we were an hour away. We walked to the venue the hour, and we
Mhm.
walked back the hour back to our hotels.
Mhm.
Just it's like, well, why not? As much as like
Yeah.
Ubers were super cheap, we were just sort of like happy to wander.
Yeah.
And so we I guess yeah, we get back to our hotels, we hongshu mimi, wake up
Mhm.
on the
Mhm.
Sunday for the actual tournament,
Mhm.
rock up at 9. You can guess when it started. In
Ah.
fairness, actually, I should say it was supposed to start at 10. I think
Uh-huh.
registration opened at 9. Actual
Mhm.
place was supposed to start at 10.
Yeah.
But
I figured this because I streamed this.
no,
I'm pretty sure. And I was like, why is it starting? They must have technical issues. No, it's
no.
just how their clock runs.
Yeah. So it was supposed to start at 10, so that's already like an hour into your stream. And then
Mhm. Mhm.
in reality it didn't actually start until like 10:40 or something because there
Yeah.
were also some major internet issues. So
Yeah.
essentially what happened, and this is a little bit Chinese whispers, so I'm not quite sure what the actual
Mhm.
story is, but it was
Mhm.
something along the lines of the venue didn't supply what they were supposed to in terms of they didn't do
Ah.
it in time. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
the staff sort of had to set up like this Wi-Fi adapter thingo, and they were sort of
Mhm.
asked. They went around and asked everyone, like, "Hey, can you play on data?" And
Mhm.
the answer for Z-Tub and I was a hard no, because we gave it a go and it was
Mhm.
atrociously bad. It was like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah. Mhm.
this is actually, it reminded me of one of my battle, or some of my battles that I played at the practice tournament, where,
Mhm.
when you're counting moves, you're like, oh, I want to throw 5 bone clubs and then throw the move
Mhm.
at 15 turns and it'll be perfect.
Yes.
And if you tried to do that, you would overtap 100% of the time. So what you had to do
Mhm.
was throw 4 bone clubs, tap the move, know that you were going to overtap, and
Yes.
that it would actually throw the move after 5. So you had to do it every time. Just the
Mhm.
lag was that bad, and it's like, oh, all right. And so
Mhm.
yeah, so a few of us got onto the Wi-Fi as
Mhm.
small as possible. And unfortunately,
Mhm.
it was one of those things where, like, I then gave it a good review, like, hey, the Wi-Fi is pretty good. And so then everyone
Uh-huh.
kind of wanted to be on the Wi-Fi. And then
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
by the end of things, it was not good.
No, no, too
But
many people on it. Mhm.
yeah, but
Mhm.
we're there, and we kick off eventually at 10:40, and it's split into a Group
Mhm.
A, Group B, and
Mhm.
all 3 tournaments that I played on on this trip had very
Mhm.
different bracketing structure in terms of when people played. I guess I should say
Mhm.
timetabling structure, scheduling.
Mhm. Mhm.
And also there was no stream, and we had to use our
Mhm.
own phones, which was a bit of a nightmare as a
Mhm.
Samsung user. I was kind of like,
Mhm.
oh, that's a shame. Whoa, we might be in some trouble. Which one of the benefits I will say is that people could have
Mhm.
have the footage of their tournament battles at the end.
Yes.
Some people don't have theirs for some reason, but
That's the next chapter for later.
yeah, that's chapter 3.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but, like, in some sense, like, Nezabethan and LNDS Oreo came first and second,
Mhm.
and they sent me
Mhm.
their footage so that I could put a video together.
Oh,
Again, I only just got
nice.
them yesterday, so
Mhm.
I've been editing the videos together today, and so I'll record that
Mhm.
at some point and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
upload that soon enough.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, so the way that this tournament ran is that there was Group A and Group B, and
Mhm.
Group A ran all the way to the end of the end of winners bracket,
Mhm.
and then Group B started, and then Group B ran all the way to winners final, losers final,
Yeah.
and then they sort of combined them at the end.
Yeah.
And so this tournament was supposed to start at 10 a.m.
Mhm.
This tournament was still running at 10 p.m. It was
Whew.
a bit of a nightmare when it came to the lag front,
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
And so, like, yeah, so the guys had to play all the way through as well. It's kind of nutty.
Mm.
But unfortunately, on my end, so my round 1, now none of this is on Dracoviz, which is,
Mm-mm.
I don't.
Not
Oh,
yet,
look, I'll be
anyway.
honest. I'm going to throw a bit of Dracoviz shade. They haven't been very good on updating the tournaments this season. Like, there's some funky stuff going on. Even on, like, on my profile, like, LAIC and Gdańsk like flipped the wrong way around for some reason.
Who do we
There's
complain to about this? Who are the
the Void.
people? Who are the Oh, okay.
I
I'm
mean,
like,
surely Anacor is number one person to complain to.
all right, let me just open up the complaints channel. Dear Anacor.
Bruv. Oi, bruv.
Oi, brother.
This Dracoviz thing ain't working in it. Etc.
Where is
Etc.
he anyway? Is he still in the Bermuda Triangle? Like, where is he?
Who knows? Who knows at this point? I
Hmm.
mean, he played in that one
Hmm.
European tournament, I guess. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Hmm.
anyway, I don't have the sort of updated stats, I guess. Actually, I guess I can put the
Yes.
challenge up. If I go challenge Buenos Aires, oh, it's already in
Hmm.
my links. Isn't that handy? That's one thing that is nice about all of the tournament challenges being run on the same account is that you can just type in
Mm-mm.
Pokemon Go challenge and you'll
I've
just get it
noticed that as
directly in
well.
every tournament, which is actually
Yeah,
really
yeah.
nice.
Hmm.
Okay, so I can just copy paste this into Dracoviz. So my first opponent was Danny 18. Oh, I should say as well that I just stole Nighttime Clash's team. Like, he was just like, use this. And I said, yes, Eric. And so
Mhm.
I wasn't very confident in it, and to be honest, I wasn't actually doing very well in scrims. With my team going into
Mm.
Gdańsk, I was actually doing really well in scrims. Like I had a maybe
Mm.
like 75% win rate, which I was like, hey, that's
Mhm.
brilliant. Like I'll take
Mhm. Mhm.
75% win rate against some like world's quality battlers. Like the Aussies were being super helpful in doing scrims, like
Mhm.
against
Mhm.
Yakko and Rocket Claire, and at some point I'm batted Mikey Morgs, Fishy, like all of these Aussie
Mm.
guys. They
Yeah.
love Jai, which I very much
Mhm.
appreciated. But I was doing quite well across the board. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
felt good going to get a gang into Gdańsk. Scrims
Mhm.
into Buenos Aires, I wasn't doing so hot running Eric's team. But I was kind of
Mm.
like option one, I run this team anyway, knowing that I've got some
Mhm.
experience under my belt.
Mhm.
Option and hope that I've worked out all the kinks and like now I'll
Mhm.
start winning. Or option two,
Yeah.
just run a completely different team.
Mm.
Just take it off the shelf. And I was kind of like, oh, that feels like a
Mhm.
risk. I'll just run Eric's team.
Mhm.
Um, round one up against Danny 89
Mhm.
CJS. He'd only played one
Mhm.
play Pokemon tournament before, but it was Buenos Aires last year, and he came
Mhm.
ninth. So I was like, okay, well,
Right. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not easy.
Mhm.
And I think I'm gonna be hoping that I articulated this quite well in the vlog because
Mhm.
I don't remember, but I think that I got pretty well whooped. Like he was
Mhm.
just better than me. And actually,
Mhm.
something that was really nice is that because we had the footage on our phones.
Mhm.
Um, actually, I'm gonna be scatterbrained and come back to that in about 60 seconds.
Okay.
Because so I lost to Danny, and if I'd
Yes.
beat Danny, I would then have to play
Mhm.
hard Jeff. So it was kind of like, well,
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to get knocked down next round anyway. So I would have really
Mhm.
liked to play hard Jeff, but
Yeah.
I lost to
Mhm.
Danny, who ended up like
Mhm.
losing 1-2 to hard Jeff. So he got a win off him.
Mhm.
But then
Yeah.
I went down to losers and I had to play.
Mhm.
And actually, I got the reverse of Gdańsk here because losing in round one, I actually got skipped to losers round two. So even if I
Oh.
won winners round one and
Uh-huh.
then lost to hard Jeff, I would actually be in the same round. So it was kind of like, at the time, I was like, "Hey, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm okay. Like, this is
Mm.
probably the likely outcome regardless."
Mhm.
Unfortunately for me, my losers round opponent was Phantom Fog, and this is a guy that
Mhm.
I might have played him in the challenge and the cup, and I'm pretty sure he beat me
Mhm.
like both times. Like he's
Mhm.
very strong player. Pull up the Drake of his profile, and it says that he came top 16 at his first tournament in Natal, and
Mhm.
I guess that was his only tournament that he played before. He went,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
he landed top 16, and this was oh no, he played in LAIC and he went 2-2, which is like
Yeah.
he lost to an LNDS along the way. So I was like, wow,
Yeah.
you get that on the big jobs. But
Mhm. Mhm.
Phantom Fog, I ended up getting one win and
Mhm.
but lost 2-1. So
Mhm.
despite again going in somewhat prepared, we hit a new low as far as worst tournament performance ever. First ever 0-2, which is like, oh dang, we slipping. This is, man learns how to
Aw.
count, and all of a sudden he goes from negative twice in a row. It's like, oh no. But like, it's sort of one of those things where like both of the guys I lost to in this tournament were better than me. So it's not like like they would be the smart money to bet on
Yep.
in our
Yeah.
matchups. Like obviously I had a
Yeah.
chance, and like obviously I took a game
Yes.
off Phantom Fog, but like odds were in their
Yes.
favor in general. So
Mm.
I wasn't too beaten up like I was in Gdańsk, losing to someone that I
Mhm.
was like I should have won that.
Yeah.
But so it's kind
Mhm.
of like, look,
Mhm.
unfortunately I went 0-2, but because I got
Yep.
that little cheeky little skip, technically I didn't come equal last. So we take the win on this one. Somehow I
So we're
did better going
balanced.
0-2 than I did 1-2. uh, explain that one, science. But
Well,
yeah,
we've
so
all balanced out now.
yeah, but yeah,
Mhm.
so I got knocked out. But what I was saying
Mhm.
before and cut myself off was that the nice thing of having the footage on a phone was that I then
Mhm.
sort of went to these tables where there was like Nighttime Clasher and Ashton Ash, a lot of the
Mhm. Mhm.
guys, and we sort of just watched my battles back.
Yep.
And watching them back, Eric would sort of keep saying like, "Okay, well, obviously here you do this, right?" And then a couple of seconds pass, and then I do that. I was like, "Oh, great!" And so like
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
a lot of sort of positive reinforcement about a lot of things that I was doing correct.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then for the most part, it was really just that I would make one little mistake, one really small
Mhm.
mistake,
Mhm.
and the opponent was just good enough that they were able to keep that slight lead to the very end of the game. And so
Yeah,
none
like
of them were
momentum.
hard
Mhm.
losses. They were all like
Mhm.
quite close. And like
Mhm.
sort of getting that feedback from the other guys. And like even some of them were like, I remember one thing where I waited a turn and Eric was like, "Oh dang, PvP Steve, waiting a turn." All right. So I was like, "Oh, all right."
Mhm.
Like I think I played pretty well. Um,
Mhm.
it's just that, yeah, they were slightly better, and that one small
Yep.
mistake in the full battle was like, cost me the things. Like I
Yep.
know one of them, like
Mhm.
I threw an ice beam at a Guzzlord, and they no
Mm.
shielded. And if I'd thrown a play
Mhm.
rough, I win the game.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh well, heck.
Mhm.
Because play rough, double super effective, ice beam, single super effective, but I was kind of hoping they would shield. They did not shield.
Yep,
So
yep, yep.
they sort of
Mhm.
they got that one correct.
Mhm.
Unfortunately for me. But
Mhm.
yeah, so the reviewers that I played well, they just played better.
Mhm.
So I came out feeling
Mhm.
pretty good. I was like, look,
Yep.
it says O2
Mhm.
on page. I played better than O2. I just had two very
Yep.
strong opponents. And I
Mhm.
said this as well to some other guys, but I actually believe that Buenos Aires is potentially the most concentrated stacked tournament of all time. And I
Mm.
haven't like gone back to try and work out how true that is, like, back it up
Mhm.
with numbers or such. But it
Yeah.
really felt like such a high percentage of the players playing, because it was only a
Mhm.
58 player tournament, were so
Yep.
cracked that
Mm,
there
mm.
weren't going to be any free wins.
Mm, mm.
Again, just like scrolling through the names that I'm seeing in my bracket, you had
Mhm.
Harjeff, you had LNS
Mm.
Kanan, you had this Phantom
Mhm.
Fog guy,
Mhm.
you had Ash and oh, excuse me, you had people like
We're
Ash and
keeping that in.
Ashran. Oh, obviously.
Uh-huh.
You had Nighttime Clasher, you had Nezabethan, you had Javier V20 again. Like you had JW Naldo around. Like you had
Yeah,
again
yeah.
all of these IC champions, all of these regional special event
Mm,
champions,
mm,
desynced as
mm.
well. Like you had all
Mhm.
these guys in this tournament, as well as like all of these people like Danny, who like are
Mhm.
not a known quantity because he's only played that one
Mhm.
tournament before, but he
Mhm.
crushed in that first tournament. Like he
Yeah.
came ninth
Yeah.
in the same stacked
Mhm.
field, and so it's kind of
Mhm.
like, yeah, again, no easy wins
Mm,
in
mm,
the
mm.
grand scheme of things. But Eric ends up doing really well with the same team that I
Mhm.
was running. So I was like,
Yep.
it's the driver, not the car.
Ooh.
That is good. I think he came
I
top 8, maybe
I'm
top
just gonna
6.
say he just had a better glare in Moltres. That's it. Like, you know.
Well, actually, there was this. I didn't mention this, but in Gdańsk, I was
Mhm.
talking to Tomahawk in the
Mhm.
lead up to the tournament on that Friday night, and he sort of like, I
Mhm.
passed him my phone and he swiped through my team IVs. Like I showed him my team, and the first thing he did was like go to the Pokemon, check IVs, and he swiped through. And he was like, he just sort of looked at them and was like, "Okay, your Aridos hits a break point. This is what you do in this matchup." And he just starts like starts spitting at me. I'm like, "Oh, nice." And so that sort of actually put me on to thinking about IVs quite a bit. And so I did
Mhm.
a lot of sort of IV checking of all of my mons
Mhm.
for the trip.
Mhm.
My Galarian Moltres was not optimal, is the truth. And like Eric was sort of looking at it
Mhm.
as well. Unfortunately, like, and it's so hard because it is such an inaccessible Pokemon. Like I had
Mhm.
two options, neither of them hit the
Mhm.
sort of specific breakpoint bulk points that would have been ideal. So it's kind of like,
Mhm.
well, look, I don't have another option, so I guess this is what we go with. It didn't cost me
Mhm.
the game. Like there was, I wouldn't have flipped anything if I had the correct Moltres, but
Yep.
because you've said that, like, yeah, my Moltres was suboptimal, to be fair.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I still had a really good time.
Mhm.
And again, there was no feeling of being bummed at this one, which was nice.
Good. Good.
Um, the only bummer was how late it went, and you know,
Ah.
uh, Nezabethan, ended up becoming the victor. Ended up taking out the whole
Mhm.
thing. He was the only
Mhm.
European at the tournament.
Uh-huh.
Ended up being the first person to ever steal a tournament win from the Latin American region. So
Wow. That's big.
yeah, and I should have
Mm-mm.
mentioned Nezabethan is actually the only other guy that was attending all three same tournaments that I was attending. He was at Gdańsk, he was at
Oh.
Buenos Aires, and he was also
He
attending.
had 3 weeks off as well.
Well, he's European, right? So, um, you
Hmm.
know, Poland isn't that big of a trek. It's just that like
No.
he could easily go to Poland, go back home, and then come to
Mm-mm.
Buenos Aires the next week, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a little bit easier from that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so Latin America has actually been struggling a bit because not only did they lose their invite from Nezabethan, they lost an invite earlier in
Mm-hmm.
the season from Marto Galde, sort of,
Yes,
uh,
that's right.
like he was already guaranteed because of his world performance, but taking another
Mm-hmm.
invite out of Latin America, and let's just
Mm-hmm.
say he took another one a bit later as well. So the pool of Latin American trainers attending Worlds is slowly ticking down, unfortunately. But it is what it is
Hey,
with the system we've got.
that
So
that prize money, like
yeah,
maybe not for Nezabethan, but like into chapter 3 when we get around to it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it does do pretty well,
Mm-hmm.
to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess that's mostly what there is to say about Buenos Aires. Like again, not
Mm-mm.
not too much tourism going on. I did sort of explore around a little bit earlier in the week,
Yeah.
but um,
Mm-mm.
yeah, just had a good time, met up with everyone, and then Z-Tub and I were on the same flight from Buenos
Mm-hmm.
Aires to Brazil, Sao Paulo, the
Mm-hmm.
next day. So it's like sort of
Mm-hmm.
in tournament, well, 3 days of tournament straight, and then
Mm-hmm.
outie. So
Yeah.
again, Argentina was the most community that
Yeah.
of the 3 locations I felt. So
Mm-hmm.
shout out to those guys and Orlando Oreo as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
incredibly nice guy. And there was actually one moment that I sort of wanted to highlight, I guess, in
Mm-hmm.
that like we were chatting, the two of us, and we'd never met in person before. We'd chatted online one time, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he was kind of like, oh, if like I'm gonna go chat to the Brazilians. Like, you're welcome to sort of come hang with us.
Aw.
And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was very, very much appreciated the whole way through. So it was
Mm-hmm.
nice hanging out with him as
Yeah.
well. But
I love it when people are like that, like hospitable, like just kind of like, oh, just don't want to leave you alone or leave you out, and just kind of like, oh, I'll take
yeah,
you with me.
yeah. So I was
Mm,
like, oh
mm,
heck yeah. And there's some
mhm,
other guys I met there. Like I met Nix 96, who some
mhm,
Sylph people
mhm,
may remember from back in the day.
mhm,
Made a little bit of a content around team building for Sylph Arena for a little
mhm.
while there. So he actually came up to me on the Friday and was like, "Hey Steve, good to meet you."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't remember the exact words, but it was something along the lines of like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I don't know if you recognize me." And I was kind of looking at him, just like, no. Which, by the way, scam of a statement, because the man didn't do face cam or anything, so I don't know how I would recognize him. But okay, maybe
How
I'd
do you
recognize
not
him in
know it's
face.
me?
But I was like, oh, whatever. So I was like,
Mhm,
no, not really.
mhm,
Help me out here. And he was like,
mhm.
Nix. And I went, Nix, I know that guy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was one of those moments.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
and there were a few more Argentinians as well that were going to LAIC that was good to hang out with. But
Mhm.
yeah, I guess if we hit a pause here in this podcast, Debbie, I mean, we're 2 chapters in. We're currently at what, like an hour 30. So
Around there.
my question is, do we carry on or do we part 2 this thing?
Or I don't know.
I say we, but like obviously this is just me essentially telling you a story time.
Look, we're clocking into your bedtime, so this story time is fine for
Oh,
me. Like,
we're well past
I
my
just got
bedtime.
to, I'm just gonna roll over to here. I'm easy. I'm like, yay!
Yeah.
I'll get my honk chew me. I'm like, yay! It's story time.
Mm.
My favorite story time, talking about PvP.
Wow.
Mm-mm.
Okay, well maybe we can push through. Just because, well, I mean, we've got so many other tournaments to talk about, like in the next episode, I suppose. So
Oh,
let's
the next
let's
episode's a
get
biggie
this.
as well.
Yeah, there'll be a lot going on in the next one, but
Yes.
um,
Mm.
I guess to wrap this guy up, LAIC.
Yeah.
So we get to Brazil.
Look, we have to talk about LAIC. We have to. I mean, like that's I suppose like what people are here to listen about LAIC.
Oh, really? Oh. All right. Okay. We- We've dropped enough hints along the way. Is that it?
Mm,
Um,
all the crumbs just.
yeah. It's
Mhm.
Chekhov's gun, I guess. Except it's Chekhov's gun where we keep putting the gun on the table and then pointing at it like this will be important later. It's-
I'm still trying to recall back, going, okay, he said that tomato sauce will be important later. I'm sure he'll come back to it.
oh, actually, perfect timing because it was actually on this airport trip. I absolutely forgot. So we were in the airport and going from Buenos Aires to Sao Paulo,
Mhm,
and we ended up getting Macca's. It's like, oh,
mhm,
which again
yeah,
for the non Australians in the audience is McDonald's, which
mhm,
I didn't realize until this trip how
mhm.
just you know fluent the word Macca's just flies out of this pie hole. Like there are a few times where I had to be like, I said Macca's and I had to like go back McDonald's. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
never on purpose, just like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's what it
It's
is,
just
right?
yeah,
Um,
I mean, like, it actually says Macca's. Like
oh yeah, I never actually thought
mm,
about that. I mean,
mm-mm.
in Brazil, it was actually like Mecci, so it was sort of close. It was like
Oh,
Mecci, Macca's. It's like, all right. So we
that
ended up
sounds
at
cheeky.
Macca's.
Like, I'll have a little Mickey.
Well, we ended up going there again, but we're
Mhm,
at the Argentinian Macca's in the airport, and we get some food. I
mhm.
order a Happy Meal. I don't get my toy. Worst day of my life. But
Just go home now at this point.
yeah, it's like, oh well, good thing I'm leaving Argentina. Man, this is ridiculous. But I'm standing around waiting for my food to be ready, and I
Mhm,
watch this British guy go up and order. And the
mhm.
man says, with tomato sauce, please. And I'm like, Tomahawk UK. I've just seen one of your countrymen call it tomato sauce. It's real. It's the Wikipedia was correct, but it said the UK. Please stop gaslighting me. Um,
Sorry, I need to clip this section of this podcast and just send it over
different.
to
I'm writing to you about. But we end up in Brazil, and
him.
it's like
Mhm,
it's Monday night, so we sort of go.
mhm,
We end up picking our hotels and go straight to bedsies.
mhm,
And through the week, I'm doing some scrims. I've got a bit of non Pokemon work to do as well while I'm there.
mhm, mhm,
But I think on the tournament started on Friday, maybe on like Wednesday. I
mhm,
look, dates are a blur. I just know it was while I was in Brazil before the tournament. But on one of the
mhm,
days, I end up going out to. We're going to go to a museum with Amanda, Butters, Butters Misso, and
mhm,
their friend. And so it's
mhm,
the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us that sort of are going to go into town, go check out a museum. So it's like, all right, sounds
mhm.
good.
Yep.
And we rock in. Amanda and I share an Uber. I saw her 2 weeks ago in Gdańsk. See her again here in Brazil.
Well,
Um,
hey, stranger.
I mentioned on Twitter as well. Like we
Mm.
saw each other in Asia for Worlds. We saw each other
Yep,
in
Yokohama.
Europe for Gdansk,
Mhm,
South America for Thingo.
mhm.
See her in North
Honolulu.
America. Oh, North America, Honolulu. That's 4 continents.
Mhm,
I mean, she's got to come to Australia to
mm.
tick off 5, and then we'll plan our Africa trip. But
And then Antarctica.
and then Antarctica, which we'll
Mhm,
tick that off last. But
mhm, mhm,
so we were supposed to go straight to the museum, but there's Butters has a bit of a food emergency in that they ordered food and
mhm.
it was some weird thing where like they ordered it through this Brazilian app and you needed a Brazilian phone number, so they used
Oh.
Butters' partner's dad's phone number, and then they couldn't find the address, and they called the dad, and
Mhm,
they didn't
mhm,
get the food. The driver just gave
mhm,
up and didn't get them their
mhm,
food, so they were like, "Oh, okay,
mhm,
we're hungry, so let's check out
mhm,
Macca's."
mhm.
And so we end up going. It's just down the street, like a block and
Yep.
a half away. and
Yes.
it's the Meki 1000, allegedly the 1000th McDonald's in the world. And it's got like, this big race car on the front. It's got like some photo
Mhm.
ops with a big helmet out the front that you can stand in. There's like
Mhm.
a driving like simulator in the McDonald's, which is like, oh dang. And it like looks like a mansion as well. And like, it's
Mhm.
like, all right, this is one crazy Macca's.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we go in, we eat, we go check out the art museum, which it's
Mhm.
modern art. It wasn't great.
Not
Look,
not a
my
fan of modern
review,
art?
modern art's fine. This particular modern art,
Was it a lot of thinking? Was it just like, it said a lot
thinking.
but wasn't a lot?
I don't know if they put a lot of thought into the actual art, but yeah, it was left some things to be
Okay.
desired. There was sort of like
Okay.
one floor that was just like, when you look at art and you're like, I
Mhm.
could do that.
Yeah, a lot of art like that, but you didn't. Someone else did.
No, yeah. So the
Mhm.
one floor, I think, was all from the same artist, and it was all very like, oh, I could do that. Like,
Was it like
what it
flicks
was.
of paint? Like we're thinking like a Pollock kind of thing, or
There was some of it was just like sort of crude drawing, like
like a high school
hydraulic
10,
computer
like
sort
year
of thing.
10, like just drawing
Oh,
things
not
on a
that sort of
school.
crude. Crude in the rough sort of sense.
Ah, okay.
And then there were some things that were like
Unpolished.
cloth. Yeah,
Mm.
like cloth sort of strung together.
Mhm.
There was one artwork that sort of said like, "You sweet like a dog." So that phrase kept getting said throughout the entire thing. Amanda, you sweet like a dog. Um, but upstairs there was a
Mm.
bit more, less modern art. Stretched back to
Mhm.
1400s or whatever. And,
Okay,
there
yeah.
was a bit more traditional art up there.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
we go to the art museum, and then Amanda and I actually part ways with Butters and crew,
mhm,
and we go and have dinner with Alpha Phoebe, CCO,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
Zuko, one of the judges,
mhm,
and
mhm.
um, Soph Chan, who is one of the Pokemon Unite casters from Brazil.
Yes, yes, yeah. Mhm.
And so, we have dinner. Um, I get scammed because we all pay even, and I basically didn't eat. So, um,
Aw.
which I was kind of like, yeah, it's not that expensive. It's fine. It's whatever. And then, you know,
Ah, dear.
head back to the hotel, snooze.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I don't know if much else of note really happens until the tournament.
mhm.
Um, so uh, except I tried to get laundry done 3 times and it did not work, and I gave up, and I just bought new
Yes.
clothes.
Yeah.
I was just like, fine, I'll just buy new clothes, which I didn't end up wearing until I got back to Australia. But I did wear it. I didn't, quote unquote, need it, I guess. But
Well, it's just
yeah,
nice to have a spare. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So this is where it all comes to a head. Tournament Friday. And I
Mhm,
should mention that the
mhm,
team I'm running, actually, Eric sent me the team he was running again. And I was like,
mhm,
I'm not making the same mistake. I'm not going to just,
mhm,
blindly run his team. I'm going to just,
mhm,
build something stateside. And I wanted to run Altaria because I felt like Altaria was actually really good into the current meta, because this was the first
mhm.
tournament where Annihilate Primate were going to be legal.
Yes. Yep.
Annihilate, because
Mhm,
Altaria is a very strong counter in
mhm,
that in the head to head, you can sort of like, you can get a full farm down of Annihilate, exit the matchup having farmed 106 energy, so you only 105, so you only waste 5 energy. You've got like a third of your health plus 100 energy ready to go. It seemed like a pretty
mhm,
good position to be in if you were ever in that spot, which you never will be with a 50-second switch
mhm,
clock. But like, that sort of
mm-mm,
hard matchup while also being really strong into Ariados, it felt like a very strong Pokemon to me.
mhm, mhm,
And so I sort of built it around Altaria.
mhm,
And so tournament Friday,
mhm,
the venue's like 10 minutes away from my hotel. So I'm like, look, actually, no, I've skipped Thursday when we go to Reggio. There's a story here as well. so, so
mhm,
Thursday we go in, we register. I actually do see a lot of
mhm,
people there. I run into people like, Dunebug, some of the
mhm,
Argentinians are in line as well.
mhm,
Caleb, the CTU.
mhm,
And, collect all our merch, and I'm recording the vlog, right? So
Mhm.
I sort of set up all of my stuff on this desk.
Mhm.
Um, it's, sort of showing the phone camera, like, I got this, I got
Mhm.
this, I got this, I got this.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then I was like, all right, we're all done. I pack up,
Mhm.
put everything
Mhm.
back in the bag. We head
Mhm.
out. We're sort of chatting. We're gonna order an Uber and probably just go back to our
Mhm.
hotels.
Mhm.
And then these two guys from production walk up to me, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Hey, can we just like record a shot of you sort of holding up the playmat?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure." And I open
Mhm.
up my bag. They're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
there's no playmat in here." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Oh, it's still on the table." It's like, "Oh, I never showed it to the
Ah.
vlog. It's still sitting there." So I'm like, "Oh no." And so I sort of look to Z-Tub, who's with me, and I'm like, "Okay, give me your playmat. I'll record this." And he's like, "I'll go back to I'll rush back to the spot." It's like, "Great, sounds good."
Right.
So
Yep,
I
yep.
grabbed the playmat out of his bag, you know,
Uh-huh. Yep, yep, yep.
and just keep smiling. It's like, "Yep,
Uh-huh.
smiling." And then like, "All right, we're done here. Thanks so much." And I'm like, "Great."
Uh-huh.
Rush back, rush back to that table. It's
Uh-huh.
gone. It's like, "Oh
Yeah.
no."
Yep. Yep.
Obviously it's gone. Obviously someone's taken
Yeah.
it. The playmat was just sitting
Yep.
right there. It's like,
Yep. Yep.
this is
Yep.
always going to
Yep.
happen. And so,
Mhm.
I walk off, but then out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, there's a little staff table over there. It's pretty close
Mhm.
to here. Maybe we get
Mhm.
lucky. So I sort of dawdle
Mhm.
in and I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, I left my playmat just outside. And then she immediately sort of pulls it out from under the desk. And I'm like, let's go. I got my playmat back. So,
Ugh.
um, and nothing was ever stolen for the entire time I was in Brazil until
Yeah, until the
so
next day.
12 hours later.
Yes.
So now I'm at the hotel. I decided to, make the 10-minute walk to the venue. Now, when you're
Mhm.
in Sao Paulo, there's sort of advice that's very broadly given out. Keep your phone in your pocket, or else it'll
Yeah.
get nicked. And so I've been following that all week. I'm like, yep,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
I'll be a good boy.
Mhm.
But as I'm walking to the venue, I'm like, ooh, I don't remember exactly which right turn I was supposed to take. So I'm like, all
Mhm.
right, well, I'll quickly, I'll check Google Maps. And so I pull my phone out of my pocket, unlock,
Mhm.
go to Google Maps. And within 20 seconds of my phone being out of my pocket, dude on a bike zooms past, yoinks the phone out of my hand, and he's gone. He's down the road. And like, I've said this to a few people, but like, fight or flight sort of kicked in, and I like sprinted for 2 seconds. And then I was like, I can't catch a guy on a bike. It's like, what are we doing? It's like, come on, man. So
Mm.
then I have to make the defeated just walk to the venue. And again, I don't quite know where I'm going. I'm getting lost. Like,
Mm.
if
Mm.
I hadn't caught two people make a turn, I was
Mhm.
about to go the wrong way. I was like,
Mm.
they look like they could be Pokemon people. I'll go that way. And it ended up being the right way. So I would have got
Good.
lost without my phone. It would have been a disaster. But the whole time I was
Would
just
have
like,
been.
oh man, this sucks.
Mm.
And so I get to the venue. They're doing the opening ceremony. I'm not watching the opening ceremony. Instead, I'm sort of walking to the go area because I'm like, I've got a sort of a second phone on me that doesn't have a SIM
Uh-huh.
card in it that I was using to
Mm-mm.
record the vlog.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, I'll find someone to hotspot me so I can like force log out of all my accounts
Mhm.
before they sort of get into everything and cause a havoc. So I get there
Mhm.
and, I see some people. And shout out Melgood. Melgood helps me out incredibly, and she sort of sorts me out to a hotspot to make sure that I can get secure and
Mhm.
log out of Google accounts, log out of email accounts. There's a lot
Mhm.
of accounts that I can't either get into or sign out of
Mhm.
because I need two-factor authentication. And there's two different things that I have for two-factor authentication. One is my phone number, which
Mhm.
you know not accounted for, and
Mhm.
the Authenticator app,
Mhm.
which is not accounted for. So,
Mhm.
things like Discord or Twitter were just like, I could not get into them. So I was like, well, this is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Nothing I can do now. I'll just focus on the tournament, I guess. And so, grand scheme of things, I took it pretty well. Like, you know, like the walk to the venue, I was in. It wasn't even like, I wasn't despair. It was just like, man. But yeah, you know, once I got the hotspot, I was pretty much in mission mode, like just thinking about every account that I could get into. And so I'll just say it here. There were two things that they sort of got into that were bad. Number one, they got into my PayPal account that was, it had $800 of balance sitting in there, which is like, ooh, that's not good. And I got an email sort of later on that was like, we've just transferred $800 out of your PayPal account. And I'm like, oh no, that's more expensive than the phone. That's the real disaster. Like, no. Upon further investigation, it seems that they have sent $800 to my own bank account. So
if anything, so they secured it for you. Actually, they're just like, you know, they put it away that they can. If they left it there and took some time to add their bank account or whatever to transfer it across, they could actually get it across. But the fact that they're just like, oh, bank account, and then like, oh well, it's on zero now.
Yeah, and I get it, because like if you don't have good English, like if you don't know any English, which I sort of assume that these guys don't based on what happened, but they when you go through the process, because like later on I still had like 30 USD in my account, so I was like, hard cut, we had to edit out a bit, so there was about like 80 or 30 ballpark 30 USD in my account that I wanted to send to my bank account, so they also couldn't get to that. It's actually a really quick process to send to a bank account that's already in. And it's like, you know, you click send to bank account, and then like there's this screen that has the money on it, and you sort of like, it's got a, you know, it's auto-filled a bank account, and you hit like the confirm button and it's gone. So
that's it.
If you don't know English, then that's actually a very easy thing to do. But I was like, lol. And then the other app they got into was my Uber Eats. And so they ordered $95 worth of, you know, this list of burgers and fries and whatever else. Little did they know, they ordered it from my local Australian McDonald's, which doesn't
Newcastle
deliver to
Macca's.
Brazil. So
this is not Mecky.
It was not Mecky. So yeah, they tried to get my PayPal money. They just gave it back to me. They tried to order burgers. They did not get burgers. So, you know, they got a phone. So, you know, they succeeded on that front. But yeah, unfortunate and annoying. But, you know, I just bought a new phone today. So happy days, I guess. But there's much more account logging back into to do between now and whenever. But is what it is. Now, as far as LAIC was concerned, I was just lucky that I had set up my Pokemon Trainer Club account, because if I used my Google account, I would need 2-factor authentication to get in, which again would not be possible. So
no,
shout out Pokemon Trainer Club for saving me on that one, because otherwise I would just not be able to play.
Yeah, but, that was my one concern. Like when I found out, well, when you made the, I suppose how I found out was from the Good Day Battlers Twitter account, because obviously you couldn't Discord message me, and I saw it. I'm like, and I sat there for literally like 20 minutes not responding, because I was like, someone's hacked into his account. As in, like, I thought someone's being silly, and like you had it on your Twitter, you left your phone somewhere, and someone's just like, like, you know, just being a little bit silly. So I just like left it. Like, I'm like, no way his phone was stolen before LAIC. Like, oh, gosh. And then nothing was changed, and you weren't responding on Discord. I was like, no, this is legit now. And that's when I contacted Mel Good, and I was just like, hey, I just saw this tweet from Steve. It's not even from his personal account. It's on the G'day Battlers account. And she's like, "Yep, I've got him. I've got him sorted. He's like hotspotting to the Wi-Fi." And I was like, "All right, cool." Like, I knew you'd be okay with that. My other concern was like, "Oh gosh, can he log into his account?" Because, like you said, like I was like, I know my phone is connected to my Pokemon Trainer Club, but I also like I forget my password all the time. So I was like, oh no. Was wondering how you would actually play, and I'm like, oh, maybe they got phones there, and then like I don't know. Somehow in my head, I'm like, I'm sure they'll figure it out for you. And by the time you were playing in the challenge, I could see your first match go, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, he's managed to play, so that's like obviously something's working. But yeah, I was just like, I went through a lot of emotions during that period of time.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that if I didn't have Trainer Club set out, they would not be able to sort me out. Like I would just not be able to play and just have to cop it, which is,
Yeah.
it's like obviously it's on me, like to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
able to access my account. So
yeah.
it'd be very unfortunate, but is what it is. But yeah, so I could get into the G'day Battlers Twitter. I couldn't get into my own. So I was like, well, I guess this is where we're tweeting from.
Do we not have two-factor on our Twitter?
Guys, do not hack our Twitter, please.
Or do. I don't care.
No. Yeah, I mean, then like we'll just have back-to-back tweets. Like, what did I tweet? Like, my phone was stolen, skull emoji. And
Yep,
just be
and then
my
underneath
Twitter was
Steve.
hacked, skull emoji. So, yeah,
Mhm,
perfectly
mhm,
that. But yeah, so that's just it was my only way of sort of sending that message out.
mhm.
Opposed to like having someone else tweet it, I guess, which I very well could have
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
I was just, I was trying to not be a bother in terms of like, okay, I'll be as
Mhm,
independent as possible in this moment. Like, I've
mhm,
gotten help to get onto internet. Now I'm just going to try and knuckle down and like get this done. Because
mhm,
like my call time was 10:30 a.m. And so like I decided to rock in early and get there at like 9, see the
mhm.
opening ceremony, whatever. And so it's a
Yeah.
good thing that I did
Mhm,
in
mhm,
this universe where my phone was stolen, which, if I
mhm,
went at 10:30, maybe it wasn't, but whatever. Um,
mhm.
because yeah, I had time to sort of sort out this account stuff and then
Yeah,
be good to go for the actual battles. But
yeah.
when it came to the battles,
Mhm.
there were, just like OCIC, there were a lot of no-shows.
Mm,
And so my round one opponent was a no-show. So I was
mhm.
like, well, it's going to
Off
happen.
to round 2. Yeah. Mhm,
Yeah, straight to winners round two, which
mhm.
I should say this as well. At the start of the tournament, we were told that top 128 would get championship points.
Yes, yeah.
While I was still in my hotel room and I'd not got to the venue yet,
Mhm,
I already knew that I was guaranteed top 128 because I had a
mhm,
path that involved, even if I lost winners round two, I would get a
mhm,
no-show in losers and then get
mhm,
passed automatically into top 128.
mhm.
And so I was like, dude, I've already won championship points. And this is
Yep.
where it's almost a good thing that I didn't I didn't have access to my Twitter, because I absolutely would have tweeted something out, about about already getting championship points
Championship points, baby.
with a selfie in my
Just
hotel room. But
with your phone that wasn't stolen.
yeah, but unfortunately, and I'll rip the band-aid off now.
Mm,
Between the start of the tournament and the end of the tournament, well, they told us at the end of the tournament that only top
mhm.
64 was going to get points, which is like,
Yeah.
there goes
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Mhm.
Um, extra unfortunate for Z-Tub, because Z-Tub ended up he
Mm.
finished 65th, and he was under the belief that top 128 got points because that's what we were told.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
And then after he got knocked out, after he
Mhm,
landed 65th, someone
mhm,
told him like, hey, it's
mm,
turns out it's actually only gonna be top
mhm.
64. And it's like, oh, which for him was the difference between a $3.5 grand travel award and nothing. It's
Yeah.
just like, ah,
Mm, mm,
that's a
mm.
bit rough. It's like,
Yeah.
as much as I was like, oh man, I wanted points,
Mhm,
it wouldn't have been a money difference for me. So yeah, it was a bit
mhm.
bit more for him. Um,
Yes. Very much
But
so.
yeah, spoilers. I also didn't make it to top 64. I get a no show round one.
Mhm.
And actually I can pull up my own Dracoviz at this point. So yeah, I get a no show round one. Round two, I have to face Corlash, who is one of the battlers that was in Argentina. He's a very strong battler. He was sort of one of the highest seeded battlers in my group, in my bracket,
Mhm.
and pulling up his own Dracoviz, he's got top 8 in Guenya, top 8 in Joinville, and he's got all of the GBL top whatever's on the leaderboard. He's got a ton of great results. It was like
Mm-mm.
it was going to be a tough one. He ended up coming 33rd.
Mhm. Mhm.
Excuse me, in
Mm.
LAIC, and
Mhm.
so I ended up losing to him again.
Mhm.
Well, it was a little bit. It was pretty alignment based. Again, not RPS.
Mhm.
I had possibilities to win, but it was very much
Mhm.
like I think game one, his Talonflame was on my Aridos in the
Right.
lead, and then game two, I had to swap in an Altaria was my best swap in, and that he had an Azumarill. So I was like,
Right. Yeah.
wow,
Mhm.
that wasn't going to go well. So unfortunately, yeah, I lost
Mm.
alignment in those ones. Is what it
Mhm.
is. But as I said, I was going to get pushed to losers bracket, where I was then going to get
Yes.
another bye because there was going to be a
Mhm.
no show versus no show, and so a no show
Yes.
progresses, and I was going to get no
Mhm.
show pushed
Mhm.
into losers round 3.
Mhm.
Now, this is where again I got scared because
Mhm.
I'd done the maths. I was looking at the bracket. I was
Yeah.
like, what was the most likely outcome?
Yes.
The most likely outcome was like, oh, this guy that I don't really know should be my
Mhm.
opponent in losers round 3.
Mhm. Mhm.
Unfortunately,
Mhm.
one of the other, I think the second seeded battler in my group,
Uh-huh.
Emilio, who
Uh-huh.
is an incredibly accomplished battler, not only
Mm-mm-mm.
in the sort of play Pokemon sphere, but beyond. Again, just reading out random things off his thing. Like he came second place in
Mhm.
his first ever play Pokemon tournament. He came
Mhm.
33rd at Worlds the first year, 33rd at LAIC, 33rd at Sao Paulo, 7th in Santiago, 7th at LAIC last season. Top 8,
Mhm.
top 6 at Sao Paulo,
Mhm.
came top 32 at Worlds this year.
Mhm.
Cracked.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very, very
Yes.
strong battler.
Yes. Yes.
And he got knocked out from winners bracket, and so I had to face him. And I was like, no, that wasn't the plan. You were
Mhm.
supposed to
Mhm.
stay in winners bracket away from me.
How dare you lose and come to this side of the town? Like,
hmm It was ridiculous.
Mm.
So yeah, and he just he outplayed me. He just
Mhm.
destroyed me. He sort of gave me some advice afterwards. I mean, not a
Mhm.
lot, but just in the sense of you probably should have brought this Pokemon. And
Mm-mm.
looking at it, I was like, yeah, I guess so. But I think
Mhm.
LAIC is the tournament that I had done the least scrims for, and so I was
Yeah.
going in pretty unprepared. I was
Mhm.
pretty happy with my team, but yeah, I
Mhm.
just hadn't done a lot of practice, and I think that sort of came to bite me
Mhm.
against Emilio for sure. Chances are,
Mhm.
even if I picked the optimal lines of 3, he was still going to beat me. So again, sort of getting knocked out.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 2 things going for me. Number one, again, I lost to 2 people that were better at the game than me, so I wasn't too bummed
Mhm.
out about it. I didn't lose
Mhm.
winnable games per se. Obviously, every
Yeah.
game's winnable, but you know what I mean.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
But also, at the time, I thought that I'd got championship points, so I was like, "Hey,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we
Just
good,
like
man."
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's
Mhm.
it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And then it turns out that everyone was running Eric's teams. Like Colin was running it, Paul Asher was running it, Eric was running it, and they were all crushing. They were all doing so well with it. We're just like, oh, maybe I should have run Eric's team. Uh, actually, at
Mm-mm.
the start of the tournament, he came up to me and was like, "Oh, you didn't run my team, Altaria," and I was like, "How do you know this? What?
Ah.
You have
Uh-huh.
access to the
Uh-huh.
database?
Mhm.
What's the deal here?" And he didn't really answer, and so I was like, "Oh, weird." And it wasn't
Uh-huh.
until I got back to my hotel room that I saw the message from you somewhere that had the screenshot of the Oceanic players to watch that had our teams
Yes.
on it. And I was like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah.
which I don't know how I feel, to be honest, about that sort of thing being put on those
Exposure.
graphics. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't affect me in any sense.
No. Might have
But
affected Rick, it might have affected Z-Tub, but
I don't know if it affects most people for most teams,
Mm.
but
Mm-mm.
I think when you've got something, for example, like Altaria,
Mhm.
that part of my hope in bringing sort of a spice pick is
Mhm.
that people don't know the matchups. And
Yeah,
so when
yeah.
they sort of see Altaria and,
Mhm.
you can sort of see in the bracket, like, oh, we might play in winners round 2, then you
Mhm.
can sort of like go, okay, well, let me just check Altaria into my team. Let me just quickly check
Yeah,
a few matchups.
yeah.
Which obviously it happens like as soon as you're on stream once, it's the same
Yes.
scenario.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know how I feel about it
Mm-mm-mm.
exactly. But it is what it is, I
Mhm.
suppose. But yeah, so
Mhm.
I ended up getting knocked out 0-2, even though it
Mhm.
says 2-2 technically, top 128
Mhm.
out of 256-ish. But
Mhm.
yeah, so get knocked out and then hang around, watch the stream,
Mhm.
and I guess one of the recurring characters for LAIC was Ashton Nash, who I didn't
Mhm.
spend a lot of time with in Buenos Aires, but the time that I
Mhm.
did spend with him, I was like, this guy's a lovely guy. He's just such a chill
Mhm.
dude.
Mhm.
Um, and so we spent a lot more time together at LAIC. Um,
Mhm.
and so he was pretty much once Z-Tab got knocked out at 65th and Rick
Mhm.
Flareon got knocked out just outside of 32nd, I think.
Mhm.
Um, he's in top 64, so Rick did pick up championship points.
Yeah.
Once they sort of got knocked out, I was just like, all right, I'm throwing full support behind Ash and Ash. Like,
Mhm.
he's, again, such a lovely dude. Like, I would spend
Mhm.
so much time with this guy. We ended up, I don't know, I need to get my timeline straight here. Oh, okay, so on the Friday night, the Argentinians that I'd sort of met in Buenos Aires,
Mhm.
they were sort of like, hey, we're going to head
Mhm.
to Outback Steakhouse. And so I was like, all right, I'll tag along.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so they sort of, I head back to my hotel room to sort out a few more things about my phone. And then
Mhm.
once I sort out some more accounts, I then head to Outback
Mhm.
Steakhouse.
Mhm.
And on my way, I sort of bump into Ashton Ash and his partner. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, who were also coincidentally going to Outback Steakhouse. And so we rock up.
The place to
Um,
be.
apparently, look, people were saying that it was good food. And so it turns out there was sort of no seats remaining at the Argentinians
Mhm.
table. So I was like, oh,
Mhm.
dang. And there was this big lineup of sort of people
Mhm.
waiting for tables.
Yeah.
And, one of the Argentinians was like, don't worry, Steve, I got this. And so he sort of,
Mhm.
goes and talks to like the wait staff and he's sort of like, oh,
Uh-huh.
can we like grab this table, jam it here? Can we just tack it on? And like the answer's kind of like, oh, not really. And
Mhm.
he sort of kept pushing and she was like, okay, I'll talk to my manager. And,
Mhm.
she talks to the manager. And all of a sudden, me, Ash and Ash and the gang end up at our little table right across the thing. It was like, hey, thank you, Argentina.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, we have a chat, we hang out.
Mhm.
Lovely guys. And then he's in through to day 2, Ash and Ash. And
Mhm.
so day
Mhm.
2 comes around on the Saturday. And actually, the other guys like Marto Galde and his crew had
Mhm.
just eaten and left as we were entering as well.
Mhm.
Outback Steakhouse is
Yeah.
literally the mecca, it seemed, of where everyone was going.
I'm so confused, but yes, go on. Surely it was the
um,
other options, but okay.
apparently not. People were like up on the
Mhm.
steaks at Outback Steakhouse,
Mhm. Mhm.
but they, day 2 rolls around. We roll in, and
Mhm.
I pretty much all I've got to do is cheer for Ashton Nash. So I was like, well,
Mhm. Mhm.
that works, I guess. He's in
Mhm.
winners bracket. Unfortunately, I think he loses his winners round, but then
Mhm.
it means that he has to wait until like 2 p.m. to play again. So I was like, oh,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
got the rest. He's got a while to chill. In the
Mhm.
meantime, I'm there with Rick Flareon.
Mhm.
It's about, I don't know, 10:20 a.m., something like that.
Mhm.
And Caleb Peng
Mhm.
walks up to us and he's like, hey, you guys playing the Switch Cup? And
Mhm.
we were like, the what?
Mm, mm,
It was like, oh, well, it was supposed to start at 10 a.m., but it's a tournament for the Nintendo Switch. You can go over and see if you can still register. And,
mhm,
I was like, we're in South America. We can still register. So we
mhm.
waddle
Yeah,
over.
yeah,
It
yeah,
takes
yeah,
us
yeah,
half
yeah.
an hour to get through the line and whatever. Probably not that
Mhm.
long, 20 maybe.
Yeah.
But, we
Mhm.
get through. it's probably 10:40 by the time we actually register, and they're like, "Yep, happy days." Tournament probably
Yeah,
doesn't start till like 11:30 or something.
of course.
It's like, we'd it's come to expect it at this point. And obviously, also, I should have mentioned that even though my call time was 10:30, I didn't start battling until much later than that. Obviously, um,
Yeah,
and so
at
we
the
played.
point of LAIC, I was like, "There's no stream here." Like, I was like, "Good luck, I'm going to bed."
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially this time, sort of my call time was known, I guess.
Mm-mm.
Eventually, although they only emailed it at like 9:30 p.m., which like I think I'd already
Yeah.
gone to bed, maybe.
Oh, even
So
if I messaged you, you wouldn't have seen it anyway.
nope.
Mm. Mm-mm.
So
Switch cup.
yeah. So the Switch Cup, we play that. Again, I think I go like 2-3 at best,
Mm-hmm.
and Rick Flareon ends up winning the entire thing. Ends up winning a Nintendo Switch. Now,
Congrats, Rick.
yeah. So Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. At least we took something away. But the one weird thing that happened during it is
Mm.
that the CTU, who was still in the tournament and actively
Mm-hmm.
playing in the tournament, was in this Switch Cup. And the Switch Cup was sort of running late in that it was pushing into when the losers rounds were starting, when CTU was supposed to be playing. And so he
Mm-hmm.
was doing this sort of shenanigan where like he was playing around against someone, and while his opponent for the actual tournament had started the timer and was like waiting for him to play at the actual tables while he was over
Oh
here
my
playing for
god.
the Switch Cup. And I think that he was actually late. I think that
Oh my
he
gosh.
should have
It
received a
was.
game one loss. Because I saw one of the judges sort of walk over to the table where Desync, his opponent, was sitting and start to sort of
Mm-hmm.
give a lecture, like start talking,
Mm-hmm.
like what seemed like
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes later after they'd sort of
Yes.
gone over at start of the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And then the CTU rushes over and the judge sort of gives him like a bit of a lecture. Like, can't tell what's being said, but she's
Mm-hmm.
pointing at the desk and she's like, it.
Yeah.
My read is that she was about to put a penalty through.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, and maybe he talked his way out of it because like, he was in the Switch Cup or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
I think he went 2-0 anyway, so it didn't actually matter. He could have got the game loss and he still would have won the round. So, hats off. But
When
then
you're that
while he's
good, you're
doing
like
yeah. But it then goes the other way. He's then playing in the actual tournament and Rick Flareon is waiting for him to battle in like a top 4 of the Switch Cup. And like again, they start the timer and the time actually elapses. It passes 5 minutes, and so they get Rick to
uh-huh.
sign the card. They take
Mm-hmm.
it away, and
Yep.
then like a minute later, CTU runs over, and Rick tells him
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, so like time is done." It's like, "Sorry,
Yeah.
man." But then the
Mm-hmm.
judge weirdly sort of comes back and is like, "You know what? Play." And I was kind of like, "Oh man, I obviously I'm on Team Ric Flair here." I'm like, "He wasn't here. The timer passed. Like, what do
Exactly.
you mean he gets to play?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Rick ends up beating him anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then, wins the final, wins a Nintendo Switch, happy
Mm-hmm.
days. But yeah,
Yeah.
and apparently CTU, he wasn't even playing with the same team. So like he was instant back to back to back, running one team in the tournament, one team in the Switch Cup, and doing well for the most part. Like he,
He's an AI bot.
yeah, apparently,
Mm-mm.
certainly couldn't see me doing that. But that all meant it was perfect timing to head back to cheer on Ash and Ash and, watch this guy go into, top 16, top 12, top 8. It's like, let's go. Top 6. Let's go. Top
Mm.
4. Woo! And, I think top 4 guarantees Worlds inviters as well. And
Yes, yes, it does. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so he was only one battle away from getting into day number 3, Championship
Mm-hmm.
Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, didn't quite get there in the end, but
Yeah.
it was very fun to sort of watch. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously we don't have a lot of experiences sort of watching streams in the same way that you do when you're there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
much more fun when you're rooting for someone. it's
Yeah,
like
very
it's
much
like
so.
when you've got someone that you're sort of seeing after every. Oh, I just remembered one of the biggest things, and like
Mm.
I do have the footage of this. It'll be in the vlog. I
Mm-hmm.
think I meant to tweet it, but I forgot. But
Mm-hmm.
when Ash and Ash went on stream the first time, it was day number 1, and if he made it to winners finals, he was going to be on stream.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so he must have just. I think I was having a chat with Z-Tab when I realized, like, oh, I've got the Australian flag in my bag that I just completely forgot.
Yeah.
Still from Worlds, because it's in this like folded up paper compartment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Ash and Ash hears this, and he's like, Steve, if I win my losers semis and I get to go on stream, give me the flag. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. He plays his game. This and a judge sort of like walks over to them, and he starts escorting Ash and Ash away out of the play area where he's just played. And he says, and Ash and Ash says to me, "Give me the flag." And I'm like, let's go. And I rush to my bag. I pull out the flag. I hand it to him, and he leaves. He goes backstage. He gets up on stage, and the first thing he does, he stands in front of the table and he unfurls the Australian flag and waves it to the crowd, which is hilarious. As a man who is not Australian. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't on stream. They hadn't turned the cameras on yet. And also, they then quickly confiscated it because you're not supposed to have flags on stage. He waved it, and then he put it on as a cape while he sat down and started looking at the teams, which is just so funny. I mean, like, as a bit, like, if I wasn't already enamored with Ashton Ash, that moment would have been like, okay, this guy's a legend. That's so awesome. So yeah, unfortunately got confiscated, but it is what it is. I have the footage on my end, so at the very least, it's been captured. But
so where is the flag now?
I still have it. I have it back.
Okay. I was like, when you said confiscated, I was like, oh no, they've just yanked it, and being like, no, no flags. We said no flags.
That will, kind of. I don't know. Do they say no flags? Like, obviously, I know that it's a rule, but it's actually written somewhere. It is.
I don't know if it's a written rule.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I was aware that it was a rule. But yeah. Anyway. So it was fun to watch him succeed, and then I ended up having dinner with Nazabethan, who was the Buenos Aires winner. And at this Japanese joint where the casters are at, there's a bunch of other guys like Rise to Occasion and Lyle Jeffs and like Nighttime Clasher, and then I head off and head home. Well, I don't head home. I head to Adelaide for a work conference for a week. Yeah, that's kind of the trip in a nutshell. 2.5 hour nutshell. So.
Steve World Tour. Yeah. Now remember the GoFundMe link below to help recover the funds of not only of his adventure and travels, but also his phone.
There's no.
But you got a new phone.
Do not scroll down. But
you can scroll down to write a comment if you're on YouTube anyway. So
true. YouTube comments abundant, but yeah. I've got some getting used to with this phone, but we'll get there.
You will. Congrats. I think it was a good adventure. I think you met a lot of people, you had some really good experiences. I think with who knows how long Pokemon Go will go for. And I think it's just nice to have these opportunities to meet these people that, you've been working or on the background of Sylph for such a long time and meeting Sylph people, and then just, the evolution of everything as well. So I know you and I have talked about before, but every time we're at Worlds, it's hectic. And we're just very much okay, we got to be at the venue for this, we got to record this, we got to do that. So it's although we have some social aspects of it, it sounds like you had the time to actually get to know people, and actually have those can actually sit down and one to small groups of conversations, which is awesome, and no other real community kind of has that as well. So yeah. You got some ELO with some Welma teams. You've just
ELO.
No. Oh, well, like in Gdańsk with copying these wireless's team on that Go
Oh,
Battle
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Day.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I've been listening. Come on now.
I was like in my head, I was thinking about like the challenges and stuff, and I was like, what?
Oh,
Yeah.
now the big question is that did Ric Flair ever get his switch back?
Yeah. He got his
Yeah.
switch yesterday. I don't.
I was
Did I
gonna.
even mention? I don't think I mentioned it, but I ported it back for him because I had room in my suitcase, and he was running backpack, so I took it back with me to Adelaide, and then flying from Adelaide to Sydney. Did the Go Wild event yesterday, and then gave Rick his switch at a challenge yesterday as well, and then I trained home, and finally got home last night. About 26 hours ago, 27, 24,
Gosh.
25, something in that ballpark. But
Yeah. So this is a very fresh recap for everyone listening. So I'm going to send Steve to bed because it is very much bedtime for him over there. And probably needs to catch up on the sleep after the Europeans have put him in a deficit. We'll blame the Europeans. For those that are listening on Spotify, please drop us a lovely 5-star rating. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, write a comment. I think next podcast we'll have more visuals in the latest of the Kingslayer's artwork.
true.
We've got to show that off. And on Twitter at G'day Badlers. What else do we have? Is that it?
Yeah, that's the thing.
remember.
And except
Yeah.
for, stay tuned for Perth in less than 2 weeks.
Perth in 2 weeks. Yay! I'll get my nuggies ready for you.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right. Thanks all. See you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Good thing I never move while recording things.
Like a statue.
They say I belong on Easter Island the way I just...
You got the nose for it.
Hey.
Can that go in the bloopers?